It is 7:04, and we're ready for roll call. Thank you, Stephanie.
Commissioner Simmons,
Here.
Commissioner Tassinari,
Here.
Commissioner Dillard,
Here.
Commissioner Gathawa,
Yeah.
and Commissioner Johnson.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll go into the reading of the Native American Land Acknowledgement. Commissioner Tassinari, would you mind reading it?
We meet today in the community of Iowa City, which now occupies the homelands of Native American nations to whom we owe our commitment and dedication. The area of Iowa City was the homelands of the Iowa, Massaquoi, and Sauk. And because history is complex and time goes far back beyond memory, we also acknowledge the ancient connections of many other indigenous peoples here. The history of broken treaties and forced removal that dispossessed indigenous peoples of their homelands was and is an act of colonization and genocide that we cannot erase. We implore the Iowa City community to commit to understanding and addressing these injustices as we work towards equity, restoration, and reparations.
Thank you, Commissioner. Next, we're going to move on to public comment of items not on the agenda. I'd like to invite anyone in the room right now to come forward, if there's anyone. Okay. Next, we'll move on to approval of minutes from November 9th and 16th meeting dates. Is there any discussion from our commissioners? Okay. Can I make a motion? I make a motion to approve these minutes.
Seconded.
Okay. It's been
Thank you.
properly moved and seconded to approve the meeting minutes from November 9th and 16. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Next, we're going to move on to agenda item number 5, update on the City Council presentation of November 21st, 2023. First, I'm going to ask if our city staff had anything they'd like to say before we jump into discussion on this. Okay. Well, first, I'd like to say thank you to everyone that was able to attend. I know it's busy schedules and a lot of things going on, but I believe we had a great presentation to our city council, and they were impressed with what we have done and are looking forward to hearing about what we will complete the next time we come around to talk to them in March. I think it was just good overall. So thank you, team. And does anyone have anything they'd like to add? Or
My apologies, I had to leave early, but I watched and I thought you guys did a great job as expected. So just keep moving forward. Thank you.
appreciate it. If there's no other further discussion, I will end this portion and invite anyone online or in the room to speak on this agenda item. So if you'd like to raise your hand online. Okay. And no one in the room would like to speak? All right, we'll move on. Next, we're going to jump into item number 6, next steps for phase 2. And I believe that this is Commissioner Simmons' position. Is that correct?
I would love that for this.
Yeah. Stephanie, is this the area where?
No, he's number 7. So there's 2 agendas in front of you because I had already printed the packets before.
Oh, I'm looking at the wrong one.
Yeah. So I didn't want to reprint all of those. So I just put the new agenda on top.
Okay, 1 second. Where is the second one? Right here? Thank you. So let's jump into next. Well, can we skip and come back after we talk more with?
I mean, I think it's better to be consistent with the agenda because if people are viewing or hear based upon what was published, when you move stuff around, then they could miss stuff that they thought would come up later.
Okay. Well, next steps for phase 2, some of this stuff we will be talking a little bit further with Commissioner Simmons. Is there anything that's not listed in agenda item number 7 that anyone would like to discuss for our next steps? If not, then I'm going to move to any public comment online. Please raise your hand. Or in person? Okay, next, let's go to agenda item number 6 and hear from or update on fact-finding and a request for feedback by Kearns and West. If you can give Laurel and Larry the microphone, we'll go from there.
Hey, everybody, can you hear us?
I think we need to turn it up just a little bit.
I've never been told that I'm too quiet, Chair. Thank you for that.
There's a first for everything, right?
That's right.
Just give us 2 seconds.
Waiting.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Sure, take your time.
Is there a, Stephanie, is it possible to give us the possibility to share a presentation, or should I email it to you?
No.
She can share screen. Just 1 second.
Thanks.
Okay. I'm going to have to promote you to a panelist, and then, so I'm going to remove your permission to talk, and then I'll promote you as a panelist.
No problem.
Hey, thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. And please let me know if this shows up on the screen.
Yes, we can see it.
Fabulous. Hey, everyone. This is Laurel Cohen here with Dr. Larry Schooler, and we're here from Kearns and West. We're really excited to be with you tonight, even though it's virtual, and kick off phase 2 of the ICTRC fact-finding process. So for the first part, we just wanted to quickly review what we've already accomplished, all of us, up to now. So as we all recall, in August, we had the full training with all the facilitators to come in, everyone make introductions, and give the 101 of all the legs of the stool for the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. So, of course, Larry and I were presenting about the 101s of fact-finding. What does that mean in a TRC context? What have other commissions done? What kinds of information exists that you can look for? So that was the overview phase in August. And then, of course, we came for a fact-finding specific session in September to brainstorm and define and start discussing potential focus areas for fact-finding. And so then moving out of September, we took the incredible feedback that we got from that session and started compiling and organizing and crunching the data that had already surfaced from all of our conversations. And then Larry and I just started strategizing, not selecting priority topics, but getting the gears turning, like, okay, if this topic were a priority topic, what kinds of data could we start looking for? Where do we think we might find it? Just getting the wheels turning so we could hit the ground running once the commissioners, once you all chose what you want to focus on. And then, of course, in November, we had a pause for everyone to absorb the huge amount of information, very complex and subtle, that we've all been discussing. And I think it was really helpful for everyone to get on the same page and really absorb that material and get ready for the next phase, which brings us to right now, December 7th, 2023, where we are kicking off phase 2. And the 2 big goals for this small part of the meeting tonight are, number 1, deciding on the format of the phase 2 fact-finding, and then secondly, of course, deciding on the priority topic areas. So just like in our session in September, where we sent out a little questionnaire before the meeting to get a snapshot of how people were feeling and what people were thinking as their preliminary ideas for priority topics, we did the same thing this week, and we really appreciate the people who were able to fill out the survey. Just 2 questions, and so we'll be getting into those results in a moment. So just wanted to, before we jump back into the nitty-gritty, to reorient everyone to what we've already accomplished, which is, in my view, a pretty large volume of stuff already. So it's just a nice feeling, I think. So in terms of those priority topics, this list, you'll recognize this was the list that we went into that September session with. So I'm not sure how large the font is on screen, so please forgive me if everyone can read this just fine. But just in case, the topics organized alphabetically just by the first letter are civic life, culture, economic development, education, environmental justice, or EJ, health, housing, mobility, naming/remembrance, and public safety / law enforcement / criminal justice. So a really robust list that we came into this session with. And you guys remember we did the flip charts and the stickies, and we had an incredibly robust and thorough discussion. And so we had these 10 topics going in, and when we left that session, we narrowed it down to these 7. So I'll quickly go through them again: economic development, education, EJ, health, housing, naming / remembrance, and public safety / law enforcement / criminal justice. So this is already another huge achievement to winnow down that really robust list to a more focused list. But of course, this list already, although it's narrower, encompasses the huge scope that we likely or possibly might not have time to go in depth on each of these topics within the amount of time we have left. And so we all recognize that, and we were wondering about how to deal with it. And so we figured there are just about 2 ways or 2 formats that the project could take. And so the first question of the 2 from here for fact finding. And so the 2 project format options we came up with were option 1, and of course this was the first question on the survey, which is choose a few topics, do deep dives, and look for data from a really wide array of sources. And the pros and cons of that are probably clear, but just to do a quick, 411, the benefit is that the topics that do get explored can be looked at in a really specific way and really make sure that we hone in on the Iowa City context. All of these issues are really salient, but what's really going on in Iowa City and what's really important to the commissioners and to the communities you all represent. And then option 2, pretty much the opposite, right? So looking at all 7 topics from a more general perspective and providing more basic or background information for a given topic. So the drawback, of course, is that it might be, more superficial or maybe more generalized, so not potentially as specific to Iowa City. But the benefit, of course, is that none of those really key relevant topics that we all care about are dropped from the list. And so what's really being weighed here is, what we would want in an ideal situation versus what do we want to do a really strong job on between now and the end of the project. And so with the caveat that we had 5 responses to the survey, and that does not represent every commissioner, and also every commissioner is welcome to have opinions far beyond what was represented in the survey, this was the data for the first question. And of course, this is pretty straightforward, but as you know with the pie chart, each option shows up in its own color, and 5 of the 5 people who filled out the survey selected option 1. And so I just wanted to pause here for a second. I know this is pretty straightforward here, but as I was mentioning, we don't take, people's survey responses as the sum total of their opinions. And so I just wanted to check in with the group of commissioners assembled here, people who had time to fill out the survey, had the opportunity, or didn't get the chance this week. If anybody wants to voice any opinions or share any thoughts about why they made the decision or what they would have said if they had the chance to fill out the survey, I just want to pause here and just do a temp check.
So I suggested option 1. And the reason why is that I thought that it would make sense for us to get a little bit more in-depth information. The other reason that I thought that was of value is that this can be what I understood phase 2 was supposed to be, to be us actually running through an example of how our system would work. So eventually I want to talk about our system to see if we can support and improve our system that we have in place there, not including the engagement piece as of right now. And then to ask the consultants to then take this and then build out for us what that plan would look like over the next 3 months. Understanding what the end result would be and then working us back to this point. The other thing is I thought that this could be a good way of providing kind of a public a first kind of glance for the community to be able to see the work that we're doing and what value this work in essence brings. Much of the work that we have been doing, that we've been working very hard on, the general public won't know. They haven't been really invited. They won't know what we've done. The community engagement piece is where they'll start understanding the work that we've done, and it'll allow us to continue to build confidence amongst the community that this is something that is of value to them.
I want to just say I completely agree with what Commissioner Simmons said. That's why I chose option one, just because, as we have said, we want this to be our pilot. So if we have the opportunity to choose a couple and do them great versus doing all of them average, I would choose the great option. And also, this will give us an opportunity to just really kind of test out and see what it would look like if we can go all in on one area and figure out the pros and cons. Maybe we'll discover that this method isn't the best, but at least we would have gone all in and then maybe discover some. I just feel like if we did option two, we wouldn't have the opportunity to discover as much new information as already is out there in the community. So definitely agree.
Commissioner Johnson, I also chose option one because I feel like a deep dive just makes sense. Pretty much, I agree with everything you guys just said, and to focus a little bit more will make it a little easier, and then hopefully we can get things done.
And I also picked option one and agree with everything that people have said. I'd only say something a little bit different in that what was driving me to pick option one was thinking about the likelihood of finding novel information that would help us and that would be new and that would be that could only emerge with a deeper dive on one of these topics. I just worried a little bit that if we went with option two, we'd end up reinventing the wheel a bit.
Yes.
Yeah, really, really well said, everyone, and thank you so much for contributing and for providing color commentary. I know it's sort of funny to have these really complex opinions, and then literally there's one blue circle on the screen. So I really appreciate people giving the rich background on why they chose this option. So I just want to take one more moment to ask if anyone present, not to put anyone on the spot, but if anyone present is uncomfortable with option two and didn't have the chance to fill out the survey, I just want to give a moment to hear any perspectives, no pressure, and if there aren't any other voices, I'm happy to move forward.
And I think you meant option one. Uncomfortable with option one?
Misspoke. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The heat broke in my apartment today, so by the end of the day, I'm getting a little scattered. I'm sorry.
I totally understand.
Thank you. So it sounds like we are good to move on here. So if the commissioners approve of a deeper dive, the question, of course, is what issues would you all like to select? So that is up next for us. And what is on the screen is the data that I pulled from the survey results right before the call. So the way this data is generated is probably obvious, but just to state for clarity is that everybody who filled out the survey was asked to rank these 7 topics that we left the September brainstorming session with from 1 to 7, 1 being the highest priority, 7 being the lowest. And then depending on which ranking you assign each category, it gets a certain number of points. So number 1, of course, gets the most, number 7 gets the fewest. And so I just want to explain this. I'm sure everyone already gets it, but it took me a second just to think through it, which is that, for example, for the first one, which is cut off, it's public safety, law enforcement, criminal justice. That's not to say that everybody filling out the survey listed that one first. It's to say that the combined point totals that it got from everyone filling out the survey were the highest. And so as an example, for this first category, there were 3 people who ranked this as their first choice, 1 person who ranked it as their third choice, and 1 person who ranked it as their 5th choice. And so because all the people who filled out the survey had this pretty high in their ranking, that's how come it shook out like this. So please forgive me if that was obvious to all. I just wanted to run through that really quick because these bars are not labeled. So they look a little like they're floating there. So I wanted to give some context. So again, not sure how big the font is showing up. So just to read them from top to bottom, number 1 is public safety, law enforcement, criminal justice. Number 2 is economic development. 3, education. 4, housing. 5, health. 6, environmental justice. 7, namings and remembrance. And just to say it one more time, at risk of sounding repetitive, this isn't to say that any of these topics are not important. The question on the survey was what's most important to you to focus on for this process. And it's certainly valuable to in the eyes of Kearns and West, at least, to see that, for example, you see that number 4, housing, was really close to number 3, right? And if you look at the overall skew of these, it's not like one of them's all the way to the left and has no bars. And I just wanted to point that out because I think that that's a good demonstration of the hard work that we did in the session in September. We took 10 critical topics and we already shaved 3 down. And so Kearns and West was thinking that for phase 2, what we think of as feasible if we were going to focus on a certain number of topics for a deep dive would be just about 3, maybe 4. And also given what's shaken out as the top items from this data, housing could be considered, part and parcel with economic development, depending on how you define it. But I just wanted to have a similar conversation here that we did with the results from the last survey question. So same disclaimers in place, this is not representative of every single commissioner, and it is not the only representation of the opinions of the people who filled out the survey. And so I'd once more like to invite anyone who would like to offer any perspectives, why you ranked things or what you think about this ranking or what you think the trade-offs are, or you like this or you don't like this, or any perspectives that people have for people who had the opportunity to fill out the survey or did not. I would love to hear any perspectives.
First, I have a question. If someone could remind me how we're framing economic development in this lens, I would like some clarification on that, or how we're envisioning that fitting in our purview.
That's a great question, and I'm sorry to put you on the spot, Larry. But would you mind speaking to that? Do you have a good way to encapsulate that? If not, I'm happy to take a swing at it.
Yeah, I can give it a try. I just want to commend Laurel for the work on this, first of all. And secondly, I think I would say, Chair, that a lot of the energy seemed to be around a combination of job training, job creation, and assistance for locally owned businesses. And so I don't know that it was limited to any one of those. It seemed to kind of stretch across all ways in which the economy could be grown in Iowa City, if I recall. I'll see if I can pull our flip chart notes or access those while we're talking here, but that's my recollection from the September conversation.
Okay, I think I remember that now. I'll just say that the ones I chose first, I chose education, then I believe I chose housing, and then I chose public safety. I did put public safety, law enforcement, and the last word, criminal injustice, I think last, just because I know there is another commission dedicated to that, and another commission dedicated towards police issues. And as a person who works strongly with youth and know very closely how many kids in our area have been affected by racial injustices, I think that would be a strong one to lead the charge with, to really resonate with people in the community and bring people together for a first attempt at this. And then I put housing as second, is because I've heard a lot of people make complaints about racial injustice in that area more recently in that area as well. But as was mentioned, all of these have some weight, and I know we can't do all of them justice at first. So whatever one we choose would be a great first pilot run, in my opinion.
Thank you, Chair.
This is Commissioner Johnson. I was wondering about the health, that's about mental health and such. Could you explain a little bit more on that?
Yeah, so mental health is definitely a component. And what I remember emerging a lot from the conversation in September was the differential treatment that individuals get when they enter the healthcare system based on race. So how long people wait in the emergency room, or whether physicians and other care providers take their concerns seriously. What kind of outcomes do people experience? What about pregnant mothers, or, what happens, once you do get admitted to the emergency room, how are you treated, and what recommendations are made to you and in what context, and then also representation in terms of health practitioners at all levels. So I remember those were some of the themes that emerged. And then I think this also was a topic that was intersecting a lot with the question of how are we keeping track of people? There was a lot of attention and focus in the conversation we had about what are the demographics, who's in our community, how can we help people if we're not sure what they need or where they are. And that intersects also with some of what Chair Dillard was saying about, housing and education being such salient issues. So I think health in some ways is really it crosses a lot of sectors, but where we talked about it was sort of the shape of the healthcare system and what it's like for people when they participate in it.
Good to go. I was just thinking also just on creating avenues that are easier for people to feel safer and have some type of access to just things for mental health in general, because there's a lot of post-traumatic stress that we're dealing with on a constant basis due to a lot of different incidents and situations. And a lot of people don't have a lot of options out there. And I just figured that was something that would be high on the list, especially if we're going with public safety, law enforcement, and economic development. I think that's what I chose for my first three. That's what I personally wanted to emphasize on a little bit more. But yeah,
Laurel, could I jump in here real quickly?
Sure.
Yes.
I just wanted to, first of all, thanks to Commissioner Johnson, just to make sure that we're, clearly stating what this question is asking. It's asking, not which issues should the TRC tackle. It's asking which issues would you like our help with on fact-finding here in the next 3 months. And so our expectation is that we will do all that we can to create, templates and protocols and paradigms that then, once our time with the commission is up, you all could utilize after our work is complete to then extend fact-finding to other topics that may not be prioritized here in this phase. But it's not meant to say, rule out any of these topics. It's more of a sequencing and a prioritization in that respect. So that may be obvious, but just wanted to clarify that.
Good to go.
Yeah, well said. Thank you, Larry. I'm sorry that I didn't make that clearer, and I appreciate, Commissioner, you putting a finer point on that as well. Thank you both. May I ask, is there anyone who would like to comment on the rankings or what they chose, or the comments from Commissioners Dillard and Johnson?
Well, I just, when I was going through and rank ordering these, what was driving my decisions was basically, which of these do I think we could move the needle on in the shortest amount of time? Knowing that this is not a short-term thing in the sense that the commission's work is going to go on for a while, but just in this, like you said, this 3-month period of time. And to me, the ones that were, if I remember how I ranked them, public safety, economic development, and housing seemed to me the 3 that we could potentially move the needle the most in the shortest amount of time. That they seem like they're a bit easier to put our hands around and to come up with metrics to show that we've moved the needle. But that's just a general opinion.
Thank you for your comments, Commissioner.
Anyone else?
I'm sorry if you. Oh, sorry.
I think that's everyone right now.
We had public.
I think we'll do public comment after we're done with all this. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot. I really appreciate your time and attention. So I think for next steps, I think we, Larry and I will circle up, and we will probably, send some kind of communication to just confirm that people are comfortable with the top few choice. And so we won't take up more time now, but I'll circle up with Larry, and we'll get that communication out to you within the next few business days. So I just wanted to have my last slide here, also because PowerPoint has really made their transition snazzy these days. And I just wanted to take a second to say thank you. I know this has been a really tremendously demanding process for everyone involved, including and especially the commissioners. And I just want to say thank you all so much for your time and your thoughtfulness and your engagement tonight and throughout the project. And especially, unpaid, you're doing this for your community, and it's really admirable. So we look forward to continuing to collaborate with you all. And we're already finding really powerful data to illustrate and substantiate your areas of focus. So that's it for me and for Crimson West, and wish you a wonderful rest of the meeting and evening. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laurel and Larry. I did have one question. So are you, since we're narrowing it down, I assume when you send out an email, you might ask us if we have any suggestions for where you can find even more data or different communities or organizations that we can connect you with? Does that make sense?
I can, yeah, absolutely right, Chair. And one thing that I want to really emphasize is that we don't believe that our work as assisting you with fact finding can be complete just on the basis of data gathered from available sources. So, for example, if we find data on stops made by police, for example, that only tells a part of the story, and so we'd very much recommend and like to be helpful in having some level of conversation, sort of qualitative data gathering with Iowa City residents, whether in a questionnaire or maybe small focus groups or something. We want to be careful not to blur the lines with truth telling and keep that separate. But I think it's important that we not just let data speak for itself, that we make sure that
Guys are too
the story
still.
told
There we go.
is inclusive of some of that other information.
Good to know. Thanks. And we, as commissioners, will work with you all to get those people and other sources to you.
I do have a couple of questions and a comment. The comment I want to make is that I think, again, this is a great beginning as it relates to us doing our testing. And I also believe that it can also be very helpful depending on what community or what group we choose within our community to be able to test this out. I think that we should leverage this process to work with the immigrant community as far as identifying and working with them to identify which one of these maybe move them more than any of the others, and then have them again shape of the beginnings of how we want to continue through. I still would like to see and would like to hear what the master plan is that we, the process that we expect everyone to go through. But I think that if we select a community and then have them involved in selecting that area of the topic, that could help us.
Just so I understand, are you saying that I don't think I'm fully understanding. Can you explain
We
one more
had
time?
we had a city councilwoman ultimately say that she had concerns around, specifically, I think, from culture, around ethnicity. In essence, this is my words versus her words, is that though we're both black, we're not. We don't live in the same world. And I will acknowledge that, though I think this is primarily about race and it is more about ethnicity. But what I would say is that we should then leverage that and address our concern by picking a community that, in essence, is an immigrant-based community, and then running this system through that immigrant-based community.
And when you say running the system from fact finding, are you talking about our overall?
Our overall system, that
Our-
this would be the beginning, but we run as a model and an example, we run the whole thing through a community.
Can you give me an example of what it looks like to run that immigrant community with just the first part, which is the fact finding? Like, how do you envision that?
So what the initial thought was is that we'd have an organization like the NAACP as an example that would be a place where we would invite people to come and have breakfast with us. During that breakfast, that we would have Kearns and West be able to do a presentation that would share information about what they've gathered about the community.
And then, okay.
And then from that, then we would work with that given community to go and then do truth telling, and then run through the rest of the process until once we got to the point that we can, in essence, do a public session about that specific topic.
And then another step is if they're seeing gaps in the fact finding or anything else that we're missing, they can help inform us in that way.
They would ultimately allow us to make the system better or make it work better. So if it's not complete, they would help us complete it.
Yeah, that helps me understand. Thank you.
So let me ask, so to make this tractable, then are we going to try to find a smaller rather than a larger community?
So that's why I'm recommending, for example, the immigrant community. So they specifically brought up one of the councilwomen brought up the whole topic around that there's a difference. And, just because it may work for one, it may not work for another. So I'm saying let's then test it but let's test it within that given group, to see how it would actually work.
Awesome. And before we jump further into that, because I do want to talk more about that, let's complete this agenda item. Are there any other questions for Kearns and West that anyone would like to bring up? Or any other discussion amongst us? If not, I'd like to open up to public comments. I know there was at least one person in the room that wanted to give some public comment on this agenda item. I'm looking at you, Amos.
Just have a question on the options that you gave us, and
And if you can talk into the microphone and
just
say your
have
name.
a question on the options 1 and 2, and
Questions on options 1 and 2.
on 1 and 2, then I'll come. And I know Commissioner Chad has just talked about it. It was the issue of culture, and you can see when you narrowed down the topics, culture is not there. And I'm afraid the public might be wondering, there are a lot of issues that touch on culture, religion, how I dress. I'm not allowed to go here because I dress this way, issues like that. Of course, everything at the end of the day turns into discrimination and racism. But I think when we start truth-telling, when I start telling the stories, we might be talking about topics that actually might not be there. So I'm just wondering if there are going to be accommodations where to take those things. If for some reason somebody is talking about an item, an issue, that is just not there in our list because we are going by the plan. But we have to tell the truth. The city wants us to say anything we want. Actually, the city says anything and everything. So I don't know how much we are really going by the city's vision. But that I leave to the commission to think about. But I just want us to be careful, and that in case we run into this risk, we should be able to find a way to accommodate issues and topics that are actually not there. And if we constrain it too much, maybe a jacket kind of thing, then we might be having trouble. But the issue of culture, Chad, is very, very important. I think it comes into a lot of those other topics, so I'm not very much worried. And I believe there are ways of tweaking these things as we go along the way. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to make public comment on this agenda item? Please raise your hand or step up to the microphone. Okay, then I'm going to move back on to agenda item number 7, discussion on TRC model presented by Commissioner Simmons on November 16th. Agenda item number 7A specifically. Is that okay with you, Commissioner Simmons?
Sure.
To start with that, so I'll let you continue to take the lead.
So, I'm sorry, am I talking about the model or my 7A is the breakfast? Or, I'm sorry, we're doing...
7A is the breakfast.
Okay.
If that's okay with you to start with
fine.
that?
That's fine. So, again, I think the traditionally when we think of the systems, really the systems were designed by an issue of race. But when we do think about how they, in essence, operate or how people are engaging with them, they're engaging with them based on culture. So their culture is dictating what is acceptable and what is not, what are kind of the rules of the game or what aren't. And so the thinking is again, to allow a group to be able to be able to express themselves in the culture that they feel comfortable, as long as there are enough people that's within that culture so that they're having conversations. I'm not even talking about between two different cultures, but just one, to be able to make sure that our model makes sense. Now, there will be items that will come up that maybe are not on the list. And those are items that we should be able to mark down and say, here's some additional things that from this community, this is what's important to them. And then maybe how to address it. But from a systems perspective, we want to be able to pick something that we think is relevant or have them pick something that is relevant of the topics that we have information on and then run it through and then see how well it works. Where are some of the challenges, where are some of the changes or adjustments we need to make. So that's what my thinking. MLK to me was the perfect day to be able to start it. And a breakfast would be something that would be fairly easy to do that would not create a lot of, in my opinion, a lot of chaos.
And this MLK breakfast is the one that's already planned through the community, or is this one that is being planned, or?
So the MLK breakfast would in essence be one that we would plan.
We would plan. It's not already being planned by the NAACP.
The NAACP would be willing to support the efforts of doing it, but I did not request them to do that because I did not felt that I had permission or agreement amongst the commission to be able to move forward with that.
Do you have a date or for?
It would be on Monday, MLK holiday.
Okay. Would it be, the reason I'm asking, because I know there's a lot of other things happening on that day. Would it be in accordance with anything that's going on through the city or the county? Or would this be like that's already being planned? There's a number, or at least I know there's some activities that are being planned on that day.
You have to give me an example of like what type of activities.
I am drawing a blank on what the names are, but I know that there are activities being created and have been planned. Stephanie, do you have any?
Yeah, I believe there will be a march, but I know Parks and Recreation and the library have activities that will be occurring at Mercer that go from 9 a.m. to 2 or 3 that day.
I'm wondering, and I know that they began those plans earlier in the year. I'm wondering if we could, jump on to something with them that's already being created and ask for
Who's them?
Parks and Rec and local nonprofits. I say this because I know that my nonprofit is one of the partnering agencies that help with these events. If it could be something that we could just, jump onto, 'cause just knowing how much work it is to, put together a breakfast or anything like that with short time. Wondering if they might be agreeable to us, asking for 30 minutes after, or like just something that's already happening during that day. And what are your thoughts on something like that?
I'm sorry, just give me a better understanding. Are you saying to attach it to an existing event that's happening?
So if the Parks and Rec is doing, they always do a march every year before the 9 to 2 event that they usually have at Mercer Park. It's probably too late to ask if we could do a section during the event. If we could, maybe we could ask that. But what if it's like we asked to have our meeting at 3, or from 2 to 3, and it's in the same space, and then people are already there and invite people to come, and it's already planned. There's already things going on. We could provide a snack or whatever to accommodate, and it's already part of the day, instead of creating a breakfast that could be at a different location and trying to get people and getting the awareness. This has already got lots of awareness going on, just to piggyback on something is what I'm thinking.
Okay.
Am I making sense? People are.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good idea. The only thing I'd be a little worried about is that, as I was understanding what Chad was talking about, it was going to be more than 30 minutes for this to work.
And we can do as much time as we want if we did it afterwards. Selfishly, I'm not always interested in a breakfast that is a certain demographic that will come to it. So, I mean, it depends on who we're targeting. I mean, but if it's already happening, and I know that they always do this walk beforehand, so that might deter some people that we would want to be there as well from that specific demographic. And if there's already an event that's going on, and we can be in the same location, people would already be there. Ideally, we could ask if we could even have time during the event and it just be an activity happening towards the end of the event where people are already there. I mean, then we don't have to really do much announcement because people would already be there, people we never see anyways.
Okay.
Okay. Just a thought.
I'm fine with that.
Any other thoughts?
I'm trying to picture these two things, the breakfast which right now I'm understanding it's a suggestion from you, Commissioner Simmons, and piggybacking on what's already happening. For me, I'm thinking of time and the logistics of either, and especially right now being December, which really is floppy in trying to get things done. And especially since later on we'll discuss on whether or not to have a meeting, the second meeting for this month. So,
Your concerns is why I'm suggesting that we try to piggyback. So
Right, I'm not doubting that. I'm saying, I'm not disagreeing. I'm saying I'm fine with that. I mean, you're right. These things have to be planned in advance. Our traditional challenge is we don't really have enough time to plan 2, 3, 4 months in advance, which is what we should be doing. So I would say that if there's an existing event that's already happening that we can be able to leverage, then we should leverage that existing event. That would be my suggestion, my recommendation. If there's something that we have to put together, then it's something that we just have to put together. But I'm fine either way. I think the goal is that will we get the population of people that we want to be able to participate and come? And if we can, then we're in great shape. So I am supporting the move to combine it with an event that already exists.
And so my other note is I think it's great because it'll be a good population, but I would say if we're looking for a different population than what Councilwoman was suggesting, this is probably not going to be that demographic. It is traditionally going to be more African American that come to it, which, I mean, it's okay. If we want to engage other people, we might need to think for a different event, as you had suggested, and we still have time to plan those as well. So,
or the different populations suggested by the councilwoman, just find a way to communicate, to invite that different population, because right now I just know, because I happen to come from those populations, the information doesn't get to my group of immigrants. So just finding ways of getting there, for example, using one of us to put out the word there from their spaces and the populations.
And that was my hope is that you all would help us figure out how to best be able to communicate so that they would be able to participate in this, and then to help us drive the ability to leverage the system to use with that specific group of individuals. And then we will then have a better sense of addressing topics and issues, whether it's language, whether, whatever it is, we have the ability of really leveraging and seeing whether the model works. I think that there is this, in general, this assumption that this model is designed by African Americans for African Americans. There's also, I believe, that there's this sense that there's a difference between being black and being enslaved, and being black and being immigrant. And I'm trying to be able to be respectful of understanding that there are differences in culture, but also I'm trying to make sure that, again, that we have the ability to test out a model that's really designed for everyone. But I acknowledge I am black, and my ancestors were enslaved, and so my experiences may not be the same. But I just heard it enough to know that it's something I feel comfortable in being able to leave that part of it and to say, let's just work with a community that we think that that can give us some great feedback.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So I think we're kind of agreeing that we want to move in this direction. We want to have an event. We want to leverage what's already happening in the community. This will be a great coming out party for us to really talk about what we've been doing. I want to talk about what that looks like, but first I want to ask Redmond and Stephanie how much do you know about what's going on that Monday? How feasible would it be to get in contact with the event organizers and try to see if we can connect with them before this is happening? I know it's in like 6 weeks. So
I mean, I can check tomorrow to see if the space is available, after their activities end. I do know that there's opportunities to have a vendor table throughout the time of their event, too. In terms of specifics, I kind of think that's still being ironed out even on their end, so I don't have any specifics, but definitely would have the names for the contacts.
awesome. Thank you. And so after this, we can talk more about how to make that work out.
If I'm hearing it correctly, you're hoping to maybe have like a breakout session of an hour or so, maybe in the facility to have pointed presentation, conversation, right?
That's what I'm hearing. Yes.
I don't know much about the event, so I can't provide any feedback on how it would work. I would have to lean on you all.
I'm curious as to how you wanted to do the breakfast. So.
Well, my thought was to do breakfast like at, the Union and invite people to breakfast from like 8:30 to 10. I figured traditionally the activities that I hear that are involved are activities that involve service and community, and those activities traditionally would happen later during that day. And so people would be able to come and have a breakfast. That was kind of what my thinking was. And then from there, they could then move forward. Even the thought is they have breakfast and then they can start the march from there if they want to, and then move from the march from there to where they're going. But like I said, I don't have specific knowledge of how the events happen, so I would have to lean on you all. But that was this thought was when you eat, you're sitting still and your mouth is full, so you have a greater tendency to listen.
For people that haven't been to the MLK event, typically there's a march. They march. I don't remember where they start. I think it's a church.
They start at, I call it East El Plaza.
East El Plaza?
Usually at United Action for Youth in front of their space there.
And then they march all the way to Mercer.
Yep.
And then from there, they have they do a proclamation. They have a number of performances and activities, usually people or organizations table, and there's like activities for kids and teens to learn more about what the day is about or showcase their talent. I know there's been writing competitions in the past and other activities as well. So I think just from that, we could fit in very well, depending on what the space is looking like and what their plans are, whether it's in the gym or upstairs. However we decide to do it, I think it could be very timely and cohesive if we get into the conversation right now.
And I would just also suggest that I think that there are funds that we would have available that we could use, in essence, to be able to support the effort.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Commissioner Johnson, did you have some other questions about a breakfast, or are you?
No, I was just wondering what your thoughts were with it. If you wanted to implement it, then what was your plans before changing them up? That's all, because they could be kind of just molded in, that's all, so.
Yeah, it was just, again, like I said, just having certain organizations to be a part of hosting the event, but it'd be a kind of a TRC event. But like I said, I'm less committed to the breakfast as I'm more committed to
Being involved
and getting the community the ability to start the process with our fact finding.
Mm-hmm.
Good to go.
So I think the move is, as Stephanie suggested, we be there all day, at least having a table there, and throughout that time, talking to people, encouraging them to come to our presentation at 2 or 3 and do that. Maybe have some more food, because, where there's food, people will come and fulfill the goals of that meeting, which kind of goes into the request of the consultants. Is it okay to start talking about what you're looking for?
I was just going to, sorry to interrupt, I do know there will be a lunch served.
Yeah.
Okay.
So maybe some sweet snacks?
What happens during lunch?
I think it's usually standard. It's nothing, I don't think it's any it's not a special meal or anything. Usually maybe hot dogs, hamburgers, that type of stuff.
So it's the MLK lunch then. That's what we're changing it to, right? It sounds like that's
Sure.
exactly it right there. It's a time when people are sitting down and they're conversating, but you have their attention, they're listening. Small shift, but could be the same thing.
Are there any, given the nature of which community we're going to focus on, are there any dietary issues with respect to those specific communities?
That's a good thought.
Yeah, I think they probably have some of those dietary issues thought of for, at least for those. Maybe not? Okay. Probably not. Okay, well, it's something we can definitely consider. I think these are logistics that we can figure out, but I think we have a plan to move forward, and I'm willing to figure some of this out with whoever wants to work on that, including connecting with the committee. I know someone who's already talking to them, so I can try to jump in that conversation with them this week and see
And
how we
Chair, I like that you mentioned tabling. I don't know whether I just made up my own thing, but you did mention that.
Yes.
I do know that really works. I don't know whether we've ever done a TRC table. So that is a really good way to get ourselves out there. Yeah.
Definitely tabling, and whoever is available to be there for the tabling. How does quorum work for something like this?
I mean, I'll check with the city attorney's office, but really, you're there promoting the TRC. I don't know that you're there talking about TRC business if you're just tabling a table.
Okay.
If you're talking about doing a program in the afternoon, that may be different in their eyes, but being at a table, I would think that'd be okay.
And the council does listening posts, and it'll be very similar to that. The breakout session, we'll have to walk through that a little bit.
So could you tell me more about listening posts and how do you define that?
Well, council, we have one here, but typically they'll break off in pairs. Sometimes it's just one, two, I don't think there's three, but it's under quorum, and they basically listen to concerns of the community and make themselves available to have discussions to the general public, and they'll set up at events and people who are interested in talking to their local government can.
So this could be a listening post?
Listening posts are a lot more like truth-telling,
Okay.
more than fact-finding. But I think the key thing I just want us to remember is that we want to make sure where I think the consultants, where their area where of need is, to get in front of the people to be able to do the work. So what we just have to make sure is we're getting them in front of the people. However we choose to do that, that becomes critically important. The worse we are at doing that, then the more they have the more that they can say that that's something that hinders their work.
Okay.
Is it also the case that this idea of a listening post is completely orthogonal to the idea of the MLK breakfast? In other words, we can have small groups of people who are there listening as a sort of very initial pilot-like truth-telling quasi-thing, and then there's the MLK breakfast. They don't have to be somehow coordinated in any way, but they would still increase our presence at that event.
Well, I assume that, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but city council traditionally comes to that type of event.
Yes.
That city employees sometimes come to that type of event. So.
Good time to take surveys and stuff too.
It would be a great time to take surveys, especially if we're tabling.
Blind. Don't let nobody make them feel comfortable. Just take the information and then we go back and research and apply.
So is it okay to move on to item number B? Or item B? Not a number. Request for consultants to join the TRC at the MLK breakfast as a starting point for the model. Do we need to talk more about what that looks like?
Well, the thought is that what my expectation is, and maybe someone can speak here, what is their plan? So phase 2 is supposed to happen. They're supposed to do this model, right? We have to approve a model. Once we approve the model, then they should tell us what the ultimate plan is. But my thinking is they should be a part of whatever the presentation is of the fact finding, because that's to me the starting place. And then there's an ending place. So I'm curious on what their plan is, in essence, to help to go through the model to be able to test it out.
So this question is really to Laurel and Larry right now?
Okay. Well, they're primarily responsible for fact finding. This really is a question to the consultants, and I'm not sure how they're determining that, but it's a question of what is the total plan for the consultants to finish phase 2.
Okay. Well, we have some consultants in the room. I'm not sure if any of them would like to come and engage in this conversation. We can ask questions to each other to further understand. Is there anyone else online?
Did you?
Yeah,
want
go,
me
if you want to.
Yeah, if you fix my rise. So on the agenda, it said it was a request for the consultants to join the TRC at the MLK breakfast as a starting point for the model. So that is the first I've heard of that. So I think that in terms of us presenting what you would like us to present, the model, I guess I'm confused as to, and that's okay. We're just kind of building this as we're going, but.
So the phase 2's goal was to test the model, the system that we're putting in place. And it was to actually use, in essence, as I would say, well, I don't want to use that because of UNLV, but to actually go through a process where people can actually go through the overall experience. And that's what I assume that the consultants were working on, that system. Now, I've come up with a system that ultimately we will or will not approve, but let's say we approve something, whatever that is.
Sure.
Then you all would come to us and tell us, this is what the plan of action is. I would assume you would tell us what the plan of action is.
Well,
other than that, that's what my assumption is.
Okay. So I think that ultimately I feel like have been clear that we are trying to support whatever system you want. So this system has been talked about many times. I'm assuming, you of course could talk about it again tonight. But if this is the system that you want to work with, and I think we would highly support that, we can certainly work with that. I know that, and Dave Ragland was on here.
No, I don't think he's on anymore.
Of course he's not. And I'm not sure if Lois Grace is available to talk about this, but I know that in their scope, they have, kind of fleshing this out more. So I imagine that, that's probably where they're going to head with that. Once we have what you want to give us, then we can kind of work with that and then come back to you and, ask more questions and workshop things. So because it's the first I've heard about, trying to present at MLK, we'll run with that if that's what you all want to do.
So I'll make sure that there's a little bit more clarity.
Sure.
The MLK was primarily the point of the fact finding. So that was talking to Larry and Laurel. That was we already had a conversation with them about the fact finding.
So you want
that
them.
was the start of the fact finding.
Okay.
But the plan for phase 2 was to actually run through an example of our system working or not, but in essence trying to put it in place.
Right.
And so what the question really is about the plans for running the system, whatever the system is, running the system through or having people run through the system to see if or how effective the system is.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
it's less about the fact-finding, because they were informed about the desire to do that. And MLK was an example, but I'm totally fine with it being at a different time.
Okay, it just says on the agenda at the MLK breakfast, so that's what I was.
I know, you just lost me there.
Okay.
I just explained to you, and you just heard about the breakfast.
Yeah.
That you may have been for you the first time hearing, but the people that we asked to do the presentational fact-finding already knew about the concept of doing the fact-finding and when we wanted to do it. What you then heard the commission talk about is, that's not the best time to do it. The best time to do it is to do it with events that are already happening.
Correct.
So we've established that. Now, I don't know if, again, Larry and Laurel, if they'll be available, but that's something we can ultimately figure out. Really, the question that I was asking is more of, if that is the start of them doing the fact-finding, which is the start of the system, and they identify the areas that they're going to pick, which are going to be consistent with culturally what fits with the group that we're trying to work with. What I'm asking is for the consultants collectively to get together and say, this is what we're going to do from beginning to end to be able to test your model.
Yeah, I think that that's reasonable. I guess my specific question is, because this is a little bit confusing, is, wow, when do you want that?
I appreciate you asking me that question.
Because
I
at this
like
point
it at the beginning of the year.
MLK, so that's why I was
I
asking.
like it at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
Like first week?
I like it at the first meeting in January.
That makes sense.
So in order to do that, I feel like we would have to have more information from you, as you noted, about like the system that you want, the people that you want to work with. So I think that we can certainly aim for the first week, and we can get rolling on that, knowing that this is going to be a collaborative effort. So.
Yeah, but I think we just talked about a group that we want to work with, and we'll give you more details
Yeah,
about
that's-
given group.
yeah, that's
We'll talk
definitely-
about that. I'm just talking about the plan.
Sure. Yeah, I hear you.
I think I'm starting to understand what you're asking for, like, what dates are we going to do truth telling? What day are we going to do the work with the Native partners? Like, how does this all fit together if we're starting with the MLK Day, with the fact finding, and how do we move forward? If we choose housing, what does that look like until we end up? Is that what you're asking?
Whatever we choose,
Okay.
how do we run through everything through the system so that we can build our syllabus?
Okay.
We eventually want to build a syllabus, and so this is the time that you put your syllabus together.
Yeah, that's a
So
lot
with that
clearer.
in
Thank
mind, what do you all need from us?
Yeah.
So that we can build that out.
Great.
But also, I know that this is just a side note, I know that this is the model we have and we're adjusting it. We might have to go back and forth with certain things we might test out on MLK Day and realize, oh, we want to do it again in February, which is jumping across, let's say, truth telling, because we're going to do something else. We might be doing things out of order is kind of how I see it, because we don't know what the order is because we're testing right now.
Right, but I would say you want to pick the order, you want to test it, and then you want to make revisions, right? You want a plan. You just want to put a plan in place, and eventually you might make the plan. Maybe you make it right in the middle of the plan because you think that's what you should do. Maybe you say, no, we learned from this experience, but we want to keep going with the plan. What I expect the consultants to do for us is to tell us what the plan is or what the syllabus is.
I want to jump in. I'm thinking when we were contracting the consultants, we laid down an outline of the phases. So I don't have my copy in front of me, but I don't think I'm misremembering that we have an outline of phase 2. So I'm thinking, can we also consider that as we have this discussion? Because it's not blank. We do have an outline of the work with the consultants.
So I just want to counter that and say, while we do have an outline, it's vague. It doesn't have dates. It doesn't have items or how much, or I think what I'm hearing Commissioner Simmons say is like, we have decided what our topics are. Please help us figure out what we need to do and how we can do it on what days and what times so that we can hit our goal at the end of February or early March, and be able to present to City Council. So if we're doing 3 topics, and that means we need to do 3 truth-telling sessions, when should we do it? Or how does that look? What are you all going to do? Are we going to need more trainings? That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, that's helpful.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, thank you. To know that we are not having a totally clean slate. We do have the outline, which we are trying to flesh out right now, and to make it less vague as we go to plan it, if I'm getting the 2 of you right.
Yes.
Okay.
Does that answer all questions?
Yeah, I think one question that I would have is, one of the struggles that we have is communication with you and staff, the commission and staff and consultants. I mean, I feel comfortable sort of airing this because so I want to ask if there is like a subcommittee we should work with, or what would be the best way to, because we're going to need some effective, efficient communication. Like, who is it? Just chair and vice chair? Should we stick with that, or
That's
do
the easiest.
people?
Chair and vice chair are the easiest contacts.
Okay.
They're
I
the
just want to
ones that-
check in because that's key right now. We need to be able to communicate quickly and effectively.
Chair and vice chair is able to attach to everybody. I feel like that's pretty simple. I mean,
I'm open to that. Anyone else that wants to be more involved?
I mean, that's why I wanted to offer it, because I know that there's been a lot of other background work happening. So if there were other commissioners that wanted to be involved too,
will
wanted to just
definitely
put that
bring
out
it
there.
I think, I understand what you're saying, and I think that you're trying to make sure that it's very clear and crystal clear about what we're looking for. And I also think that you're really focusing on making sure that there's clear lines of communication.
Yeah.
And I'm really down with that. I'm the type of person I like to be very direct and tell you what I'm specifically thinking and what I specifically want. There is a contract that is written. We dealt a lot of time on dealing with this phase 2 thing. This phase 2 thing is something that you all have put together in the agreement. I asked you at one of the meetings we had, what is it that you're going to do during phase 2? And you rattled off to me all of these things that in essence are going to be done. I'm saying, okay, it is what it is. Now what I'm simply saying is, we'll flush out specifically what this is going to look like, or we'll approve this, or something of that nature. You all still have to give us what the outline is for the phase. And I don't mean just piece by piece, which is important. We're trying to figure out what the end result is, and then for you to work your way back, so that we can be ensured that we have learned everything that we need to learn from the system, that we have gotten the information that we need. I do not believe that you all have been very crystal clear in providing that to us. So I'm just telling you, you don't have to come and talk to me or anything. If you want to, you can. You don't have to. I'm just asking, based on the agreement that was set, I want you all to be crystal clear in what you're providing us in phase 2. We did not get everything that we're supposed to get in phase 1. We still haven't gotten everything we're supposed to get in phase 1, but it was not crystal clear. I would have not have done certain things first and certain things second. It was all in disarray, in my opinion. I'm saying here, will you, I think our next, our first January meeting, that Thursday is what, January 4th?
I think so, yes.
The first meeting, will you and the team have a detailed plan for us as far as what this looks like, as far as putting our system, testing our system with the group that we select to be a part of that test?
Yeah, I think that we can reasonably put that together as long as we're working together effectively and efficiently, which is why I was asking about the communication. So we are going to need things from you, and we're going to need to be able to respond and have responses from you. So that's why I was asking about communication and being clear.
There's a thing called excuses, which are tools of incompetence used to build monuments of nothing. Communication has to happen. That's why I'm trying to be very clear with you, at least of what my expectations are. You want it to be clear, that's fine. You are saying to me and to us that January 4th, you will have a clear plan. Is that correct?
I believe we can make that deadline.
Thank
And
you
I also
very
want to
much.
recognize that V is just one voice and all the consultants. We also have Dr. Schooler online who can also address your question. I want to recognize that V cannot make that decision and not speak for the whole group.
And Chair, I do respect that. But I believe that because there has not been one person that we've been able to go to, we've been in essence getting the runaround. And look, I appreciate that there are some challenges and things that happen. It's just natural. But the way I take a look at it is that we're spending a lot of our time, volunteer time. They're spending a lot of our time and city money. They should be clearer on that. If in a business, I would never allow that to happen. For someone to spend my money and my time and produce nothing. So I'm just saying here, they told us at our meeting that we had over at the Senior Center, this is the work that's phase 2. We argued about just getting time for us to get our mind wrapped around it, and they ultimately said no. So I'm just saying, now the time we're moving forward, phase 2 has started, what's the clear plan of phase 2? That's all I'm really asking for them. And they have meetings every Friday where they get together, or at least on Fridays, where they get together and have these conversations. And so I don't know if there's no one in charge, that's a problem for me. But I would hope that at least that they would be able to talk to each other and figure out what the master plan is. Other than that, then we're in bigger trouble than we think.
It sounds like you. Do you want to be in specific contact with anybody specifically? Would that make it easier? Because it sounds like that's what you're kind of saying. And you're
No, I mean, I'm comfortable with chair and vice chair. Yeah.
It was the
and
way you said it makes it sound like you're like, well, I got to be able to talk to anybody at any time. Well,
no, I just want to make
specifically, who would you
sure
like to
that
talk to?
people feel included because I know that this is a group effort and, I know communication can be challenging. So in order to have a very quick turnaround, which we can certainly work around, it's got to be collaboration. We have to be able to get information from you, get responses. And so, that's all I was asking for was clarity.
I agree with the direct. When he says direct, go direct to somebody. So if there's somebody that I feel like that would make the easiest if there was
Sure.
anybody other than the commissioner. And
I think it's pretty high level at this point in terms of, the fact finding and what, you want to focus on, that I don't think any specific commissioner is necessary. I just wanted to double check. And I know Dr. Schooler also has his hand raised, so I wanted to recognize that. And also to just say that, yes, I am only one consultant. I am one of the few consultants that is in the room, right? And so I understand that I get directed at a lot for things that aren't necessarily completely in my control. Do I feel like I'm a professional and have provided the things that I have been contracted to do? Yes, and we always knew that this would be a fluid process, and so we have to have flexibility. This is, in effect, a 7-month contract. So yes, we have things in certain phases. There was a lot going on. We've had to switch things around. So I just wanted to say that as well. I mean, there's been a lot of work happening, and I don't think that you can necessarily say, oh, well, this one thing didn't happen, so nothing has happened, which is what it feels like right now. So I will let Dr. Schooler finish, though.
Thanks, Counselor. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, if y'all needed to respond, go ahead.
It's your mic now. Go ahead, Dr. Schooler.
Thanks. Well, first of all, I just want to affirm something that V said. I mean, I think it's important that I and Laurel and the remainder of the consultant team collectively take accountability here. This is not V's responsibility alone. I also think that we're very well positioned to begin 2024 with the implementation of the system as it relates to an interlocking set of events on a particular topic with fact-finding, truth-telling, and hopefully some dialogue and reconciliation around it. What do I mean? If, for example, Kearns and West is able to participate in something around MLK Day related to public safety, where the purpose of that is to both share findings and collect additional data, then at some point thereafter, the anticipation was that Think Piece would then help the TRC host a truth-telling event tied to that topic. And then Native partners and healing partners would also be working towards a reconciliation exercise, a reconciliation event tied to that, and that they would be timed in such a way that the public could receive the facts that have been gathered, they could add to it, they could bring their truth, and then the stage could be set for some meaningful dialogue about how we move forward given the findings that have come about. So I honestly, as I listened to Commissioner Simmons, felt that we're well positioned to do all of those things. And I will just add that a January 4th meeting is I think reasonable, but just with the caveat that as we get deeper into December, it can become more difficult for folks to connect because of both the holidays and vacations. And so we will certainly be prepared to report back on January 4th and do our utmost between now and when folks scatter to prepare for that kind of presentation.
Thank
Hope
you.
that's helpful.
Thank you for that, Dr. Schooler. I will agree with Commissioner Simmons that we definitely do need that plan, and also understand that, communication has not been the greatest across all boards, and we don't have much time left, so we do need to get back on communication. I will work closely with our consultants, our city staff, and any other commissioners that would like to be directly connected to whatever this plan looks like, so that we can make sure that we have a solidified plan by that first meeting in January, if that is okay with everyone.
I think so. I just want to add that if we're going to require the consultants to essentially swear an oath that something is going to happen, then we need to do it as well. And what I mean by that is that if V is going to be talking with Chastity, then we as a commission have to say, then as soon as we get a message from her, we're going to respond within 3 hours. All right? I'll take the pledge now, but this has to be mutual. Otherwise, it's not going to happen, and it's unfair.
I'm personally not going to take that pledge, but I'm very busy and I'm doing a lot of other things and I'm not getting paid. So I'm going to say at the end of the day, I hope that we could just get it done in communication best that we can. That's my personal.
I'm going to push back on that and say, while 3 to 4 hours is asking a lot, we're all busy, as I think everyone has always said, and we're all volunteers who chose to be on this commission. So if you're choosing to not respond, it is very frustrating and hard for me as the chair to also herd cats in that way. So please do what you have to do. I know that everyone is busy, and I know I'm responding what you said. Know that you're very busy, but it's very, very difficult to hear that, because that puts all the pressure on me and Lauren. So if we chose to be on here, if you want to be on here, let's all do the work collectively. So I'm just going to thank Commissioner Tassinari for what he said. Not expecting him to respond right away, but no response is very frustrating. So,
with that being said, just to clarify, when it comes down to communication, I will do the best that I can. I am definitely dealing with a lot of different situations all at once that have nothing to do with here, and I'm here every time,
yes.
no matter what. So I will be here. If you give me an assignment to do, done.
Okay.
But I don't like wasting time, because I got a lot of valuable time. And I understand we all do, but I also have kids, everything else all in between, just like a lot of us who aren't even here right now. So I understand communication is very needed, and but I hate wheels just spinning. That's my biggest thing. I don't like wasting time, and if we have something to do, give it to me. Let's get her done. So I am all about it. Assign me that, let me know, let's go. But other than that, all the chit chatter and a lot of things that kind of just go absolutely nowhere or anything like that, I have no time for that, because like I said, we're not getting paid.
Noted.
At all.
Chair,
Doing the best we can
this
after
is
that,
Larry.
don't worry about it.
Chair, is it okay if I follow up with V?
Yes, and I know that Dr. Schooler did want to add something. Is that okay if he chimes in?
Just
very quickly?
if I may,
Yeah,
If
go
I may,
ahead.
Dr. Cathwood, just very quickly, I would just say that it might be helpful for the group to develop a little bit of a naming convention when something really needs a response from each commissioner in short order. So something like, action required in the subject line, or reply requested, or FYI, for information, if it's just that. But I think it can be difficult when there is a significant volume of messages to know which ones, deserve priority attention and response. So just a suggestion to consider.
Thank you.
I've also said the text messages are the easiest way to get in contact with me. I've received barely none. I've received like a couple from a few different people every now and again. Just want to clarify with that, that's all. So.
Okay. Go ahead, Commissioner Gathwa.
Yeah, I think I just wanted for you to kind of help me with the specific issues with communication, because I thought we were doing good, but from what we said, we are not. So, and I still don't understand the specific, so a bit of clarity.
Yeah, I think it's mostly, when we're coordinating our internal meetings with, city staff and commissioners, just trying to make sure that, we have exactly what we're going to be talking about, people are there, those kinds of responses. When Chastity and Lauren are showing up at these meetings, they need to have all of the information. So for us, is to get to them, by Monday or Tuesday, and staff, and say, here's the things that we're thinking. We'd like to bring this to either the TRC meeting or a Friday meeting, and can you gather information, or can you get responses to these specific things for that meeting? And sometimes that's been difficult for them to get. And so that's part of it. There's other things that have been going on as well in terms of, just scheduling and trying to figure out, when city staff is going to be at the meeting, do they not need to be at the meeting? So we've been trying to, figure out those clarifications. So there's some of the stuff that's on our end, but just wanting to make sure, ultimately, the reason why I brought that was because I just wanted to make sure that people that now we're getting ready to kind of push this forward. There were a lot of ideas that you all were just throwing around. So I wanted to make sure that nobody was feeling left out of that communication. I think Chastity and Lauren do a great job of showing up. But if there were others, and I know a few other commissioners have shown up every now and then as well. So I didn't want to leave anybody out, and just wanted to clarify who we're communicating with moving forward. That's mostly it.
Thank you, because as a commissioner, most of the communication we get is either from Stephanie as staff, and also through Chastity, whom I all appreciate getting that, and also and us responding to that and doing what is needed, or either doing or not doing, and explaining. Yeah,
and there's always quorum issues too, or like the daylighting issue. So we have to send everything to Stephanie, and then you can't reply all, and those kinds of things. Just sort of government kind of aspects.
Yeah, especially the not responding to Stephanie can be a challenge.
Yeah, that was all.
Yeah. Thank you.
So I think we've. Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Jones, there seems to be this challenge that exists between this triangle relationship that we have that tends to cause, in my opinion, some confusion about directionally what should be done and what should not be done. It is, in my opinion, that in essence it should be led or guided by one person, and they should consult with, in essence, the other people. So it is my desire to not keep allowing the employee, the city staff, to be used as a reason of why things aren't done because you're not available, and for that work to be, in essence, held within the commission. My question for you is, how do we best do that? so that, again, there is not this sense of you believing that you all are saying one thing and we're saying something else that may create confusion that then makes it unclear about directionally how we move forward. How do we create it so that, again, the words that are given are words that are clear and concise, and the consultants have the information they need to be able to achieve the objectives that we have in the next 4 months?
So, not to go revisit past miscommunications, if we can chart forward with the chair being involved in that communication, I thought that was always available, but if this is a new way of making sure that the messages are relayed, I think staff is fine with that. I mean, we all have documented through emails anyway. It's really clear when Stephanie knows that she needs to respond to a commissioner question, or if it bubbles up to the city manager's office and we need to respond to the communication. I think the challenge is some of the issues that you alluded to of the next steps. That has always been very difficult for staff to understand what those next steps are. And I know the consultants have expressed their challenges with that. I think as we move on with phase 2, there's lessons that we've learned in phase 1 that should help us with phase 2. And if directing communications through the chair is going to work, I say let's give it a shot to see how it produces. But at the end of the day, we do have to know, and I've been saying since day one, God was my witness, we need a roadmap. We need to know, like you've been saying, what this looks like at the end, so that we can make sure everybody stays on task in the middle and at the beginning. And that's been the hard part about this process, because many of us, if some of us have had that knowledge, many of us haven't really known what it was supposed to look like at the end of phase 1, and really haven't gathered what it's supposed to look like at the end of phase 2, which we're all struggling to do because we all want it to work. So if this is the communication style that we all want to agree with, I'm all for it, and will help every way I can to make sure that works.
Madam Chair, I believe that all of the communication should in essence be directed to you or to our vice chair.
Okay.
Once there is some clarity as far as directionally where we should head, then I think that you should have the right to be able to work with the staff to say, does this make sense? Preliminarily, does this make sense or not, as far as based on the contract or the agreement that is set? It is my concern that a lot of the confusion is self-created. It's not by accident. It's designed to create chaos. And that makes it muddy when it comes to holding people accountable or holding individuals accountable. This is something that we're investing a great deal of time in. I'm not even talking about the money, about the time. But you are our leader on this one. If they're clearly coming to you, then there should not be any confusion about, and you can do the other things that you need to do to make sure that we're on track. But then there should not be any confusion about communication.
Okay.
And that's what I'm hearing. They say that the key issue is around confusion around communication.
I was also confused at that myself because, I thought that's where it funnels. And then it goes out, branches off to everybody else.
So, I mean, to be fair, communication does come to me sometimes, but there are definitely behind the scenes contract things that would be between consultants and city staff. For example, the entire process of getting the contracts together was completely, I was not in the loop of that at all. That is, I mean, I thought that made sense because, as we all said, we're volunteers, and that's a lot of things that I don't have expertise on. What I'm hearing from everyone, just so I can clarify, is that you would like for me to hear to hear anything from consultants to come to me, and then I direct it to city staff, or they can talk to city staff, but I would always be CC'd on it.
So I'll even try to be more crystal clear.
Okay.
What we're asking for is a plan.
Yes, and I understand the plan part.
And a roadmap.
Yep.
I think that they should come to you to share what the roadmap looks like.
Okay.
You can then do the assessment of whether you and the vice chair can do the assessment of whether the roadmap makes sense or not. If there are adjustments you think that could be made, that's fine. Or if you want to get more feedback and go to the into the to the employees and say, this is what they laid out. This is what I think makes sense. Where is it that we're missing? Where are there any gaps or anything from that perspective? They can then share with you the gaps, and then you can then make a determination of whether the three groups get together or not.
Okay.
Or for it just to be guided. And I'm not even trying to say for everything. I'm just simply saying for the roadmap
Okay.
of what this looks like when it's done. Because like Commissioner Johnson, there is a thing about results that's important. And then what is the plan to be able to get to that? What is the journey that we have to take to get to that place?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Thank you for that. That makes a lot more sense to me. I'll let consultants talk, but I think it would be worth us, since we're talking about this, for us to collectively talk about what our end goal is, so that we know collectively, we're all agreeing tonight, what do we want our results to look like? And that can help inform this roadmap when we sit down and talk with everyone. So if any other consultants in the room or online would like to weigh in on this conversation, please come to the mic or raise your hand. Otherwise, we are going to go into this discussion just to make sure we're on the same page.
Great, I'd love to talk, and I think I totally support that next step. The way it was designed, in my understanding, is the 3 months was education about how things work, what's possible, what people decided and did, and why, and how it played out. So you were educated about that in truth-telling and fact-finding. And the goal was that then you would do exactly what you want to do right this moment, which is to think about what you want your end goal to be thinking about what this would be, what you've learned, what would work best, or would you like to try out as a pilot here to see how it works. And then I don't think the plan was ever that we would give you that education and then tell you what to do. The education piece, those 3 months, was to help you begin to percolate. And you've actually talked about how do we find out, we should consult with our community, what they want. But anyway, the whole point is when you guys know what your end goal is or the things you want to try, we're the people who will help you do that. And so that's a little different than when I hear, I'm not the only person speaking at all for all of the consultants. But I'm willing to do what I can for January 4th, absolutely. And the input from you all, like from tonight, and your ongoing communication, and communication going through you, Chastity, is what guides us in knowing what you want and how to play it. Because we're the ones that'll help you know what to do. We have people who have done all these things before. Okay, so I think I've said it. Is there any question about what I'm saying?
I don't have any question. Thank you so much, Annie.
Thank you.
So forgive me, because I think it's all coming to my head, just so I understand the way I'm viewing what we've been doing. As everyone kept saying, we've did the education. That was our learning phase. Now we're in the brainstorming phase. And for them to come to give us this roadmap, we need to complete our brainstorming and get it all out there so that they can collect and gather everything that we've said and put it to a map, as you're saying. So whatever elements that we've learned that we want to be completed or put into the next 3 months, I think we need to talk about that right now, if that's okay. So we've already said that we want to do our, what is that date? January, MLK Day, I think it's the 15th. That's one of our first steps, and that's fact-finding. And we already sat down and said that we're going to at least do 3 topics. Now, my opinion is that if we're doing 3 topics, we need to do at least 3 test truth-telling events on those topics. But we could take one, we could do one, whatever we want. We need to decide what it looks like. We could, on top of in January, after the MLK event, try to do that in January and March, and February and March, one a month, whatever we want. I think as I'm getting more information from both sides and understanding the frustrations, especially with communications, is that's what we're missing. You've been saying from the beginning, Commissioner Simmons, that we are in control. So I think this is our moment to be in control. So what do we want to do?
So,
Okay.
please.
No, I'll just throw something out just to start kind of the conversation. So it seems to me the fact-finding with respect to 3 topics is something that we can easily and should offload onto the consultants, in the sense that we can specify the kinds of information that we want and all the rest, but they're going to do the legwork to come back to us and say, this is our assessment of the landscape with respect to these 3 topics. Truth-telling is a difficult thing to do, right? It's a very personal thing to do. We're going to get it wrong, right? I think if we try to spread it out over 3 topics, we increase the likelihood of getting it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And so my suggestion would be that we focus on one of the topics, and that topic is the one that we believe would most significantly affect the community that we're doing the test on.
Can I jump into that? So we learned a lot about truth-telling, right? We learned about how big it is, and Eduardo is not here, and how it can look, especially, but they were from like country level and state level, and a couple from city level. But I'm really intrigued with what Redmond was talking about, listening posts, and we could start off with mini truth-telling, and then maybe our final truth-telling event that we work with Eduardo is in March, and it's whatever topic we've decided after listening to people, because everyone's been telling us that we need to talk to the community more, and we need to hear from them, and that is our big actual test drive. If that makes sense. Because as we've been talking about, this is preliminary. We're going to get a lot of things wrong. And I mean, I don't know how we even find people to do the big, giant one until we do some of these test ones. So even if it is a little bit of fact-finding, there could be an element of mini truth-telling at the MLK event, or mini listening, or it could be an activity, like write down your story. How do you feel about this topic? That could be truth-telling. It is in our charges that they can be any form. To really activate the community and put our roadmap together. So I'm saying all this, and I'm hoping that our consultants are hearing that these are ideas that I hope that you'll collect and take into consideration, and maybe put some ideas of how a roadmap could look as we're brainstorming right now.
So if I would just talk just about kind of the model that we have.
Mm-hmm.
First, I want to just address what you said. We can run them concurrently. We can one after the other, so we can have learnings from one, then we can do another topic and use the learnings from one to the other, do another topic, and we can do it any way you want. Mm-hmm. The way the model is built is designed to address several issues. First thing, it just says pick a topic. That's what we went through today. We said, hey, we have around 7 different topics. Which topics are most important? Here are the 3 that are most important. You may start with just one for right now of the 3 that we're going to do. Then then you do is that they gather the fact finding, and you have the sharing of that information. You have to figure out what is the best form to do it, but you in essence gather the information first, right? And you figure out what it says, and then where it's going to be the best way to be able to communicate to the populations that you're ultimately trying to get to. Then the next thing I have down is the organization. Now, the reason why I put the organization and the organization sponsor is because there was this concern around, if we get together, does it become a meeting? Does it become a meeting that everyone has to be able to participate in? And can people tell their truths if they know they're being recorded? If you have it done by an organization, they don't have those requirements. Not all of us have to be there. But we could, in essence, collaborate and work with them so that they can then allow us to be able to gather that type of information of what we need with key people there to be able to do it. That's where then you're ultimately working with them, again, as you share the information. Now you have people that can then tell their truth in a secure place, in ways that, again, is not public, And then we then can determine, based on everything that we've heard, what people do we think would be willing to present their story in public, and that will share it. It's very similar to what happened in the Congress when they do all of their investigations. They do the investigations first behind closed door, and then they bring people out to the light. And then it gets into what we believe possibly the reconciliation is. Now that we've heard that these are the people's truths around this given topic, what are the possible things that in essence can help ease the pain or the burden on individuals that would allow them to then want to be able to move forward? They can be a part of it. Gets into where the healing circles can be a part of it. This is where we get into, do we have people that are consultants or people that are therapists, that are professional? This is where we have to get into the nitty gritty, but that's what you would then have. And then you would then come back and say, as a commission, this is the information we got in general. This is what we heard. This is what it's about. And then from there, then we as a commission then goes and say, we will have this public session. It will be set at such and such a time. We ask you, organization A, to consult to bring these individuals to be able to have this, and then we'd have them help us with some of our guidance about putting on the public session or presentation about the specific topic, and then include in that, again, things that we felt that were important, whether it's just listening, a true listening post where we're just listening, or whether we're ultimately saying we're listening and here's kind of some of the possibility of solutions, or whether we're saying we're listening, but we're going to go back at some point in time in this process, that we're going to have conversations with City Council that gets into the issue around reconciliation to be able to see, are there ways of, in essence, solving challenges or problems that exist? Or just ways, or just there aren't ways for whatever reason that we can, in essence, we can address that issue. That's kind of how this model is built. My thought is just, since we have this time, just do one after the other. That way, when you do one, you learn from it. Then the second one you do, you take the learnings from the first one. And then the third one, you take the learnings from the first two. So it's the same general process of putting people in the situation. That my recommendation was work with a specific population for this first one to be able to address issues around language, address issues around culture, address issues that we may not think of that could in essence better inform us. That's kind of what my thought is of this model. Putting it together is what I think the consultants should be able to help us with. But that was kind of what it's the same concept. It's just a topic. You run through the plan accordingly, you learn from it, and then you make adjustments.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I think that's possible. I'm a little worried that we don't have all the pieces to do it back to back yet. I'm worried about the reconciliation piece. And my argument is, unless we're able to figure that out in the next 2 weeks or the next month, we might need to go back to back, or I think the word you used was concurrently. I don't normally use that word. So to do other topics so we can get as much testing out before. Can someone, Redmond or Stephanie, tell me, when is the last day of the contract? Is it March 1st? Is it February 28th? Is it the end of March? I'm unsure. Sorry.
No, that's fair, because I just had this conversation. It's not a date, an end date. It's based on months. So it's the time frames as are mentioned are this 4 months for this, 3 months for that. There is not a end on this date or end on that date. So I just had this conversation with the city attorney, and I was looking for that date, and there was not that date in there. It's just saying 4 months for this phase, 3 months for this phase. So we're finished with phase 1. That was 3 months. Phase 2 is 4 months.
So did phase 2 start December 1st, as Kearns and West just presented, or November 1st?
December, we had a pause.
Okay, so December 1st, so that's December, January, February, and the end of March. All of March we have, if we're going off of what you just said. Okay. So So it gives us until the end of March to complete these
With consultants.
with the consultants. I mean, with the consultants to continue to give us everything. We, hopefully, by March, if we want to continue doing our own tests through whatever, the end of the year, the end of the summer, I mean, I think it would be great to redo some of them probably when it's warmer out, and get as many reps in the last 3 months, I guess, is kind of what you're thinking, right? I'm just, like I said, I'm concerned that I think this is a great model, but I don't think we're there yet because we're still in the brainstorming and pre-trial phase, if that makes sense. And I guess the reason why I'm bringing that concern up is I don't want us to have to wait to get finished with a piece to move on to the second one, if that makes more sense of what I'm saying.
Quick question, what would we consider a truth-telling session to be?
It can be anything. I mean, in my opinion, not the expert, like anything that people can tell their truths that, I mean, as long as they're feeling safe about telling their truths. Did you want to add something?
I was just maybe hoping to reflect on this idea of the roadmap. As the commission is thinking about, what this phase 2 can and should entail, I consistently go back to the resolution that has the 3 pieces, the fact-finding, the truth-telling, and the reconciliation. I think a lot of what you're looking for is there, and it's maybe a matter of connecting those very concrete specifics like the consultants talked about at the trainings, as to, you can even get to the point of the dates now that you have the duration for the remainder of phase 2. But I would urge you to maybe start there as that guiding document that has it has examples of what a truth-telling could be. It has examples of the kinds of activities. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
I'd also like to, as we're thinking about this, and the biggest complaint that people had was time, and just thinking about how much time are people willing to dedicate. I'm not expecting everyone to go to every event. We don't want everyone to be at every event because of quorum, so there's going to be times we'll have to really divvy up and see who's available to come to certain things. Because, there's 7 of us. 8 of us, we could have 2 commissioners at an event and have multiple events eventually. Maybe not in January as we're trying to figure it out, but February and March we could do a lot. And with Black History Month coming up and Women's History Month and all these other awareness months, we could piggyback on other events. I think that's the easiest thing to do. If it's already created, how can we be there? Which I want to give credit to Commissioner Simmons because he's been talking about that for a while. So, any other thoughts about roadmap items and what it looks like or specific dates? I love that we have our first one.
I'll put something out there, put it out there time and time again before. I have a facility. I will hold anything down at that set facility of any time when we can have any truth-telling of any sort. It's literally a stage, except you put ropes on it. You can literally take the ropes down, and then you have a full-fledged stage that's sitting right there with Muhammad Ali sitting on a mural outside. Muhammad Ali's birthday is coming up on the 17th. That is right after Martin Luther King's birthday as well. And it's another Black figure who's been fighting against a system that has been broken for a long time. So this is something I've been saying for, I don't know, how many months now?
Forever.
But I'm going to say it again because
glad
it
that you
seems
bring
like
it up.
if we need the ball to roll, this is what I mean about, okay, let's go. Now, what are we going to do next? Because I'm willing to do it.
So I'm glad you brought it up because I was thinking about it earlier. Since it's your gym, tell us what dates. Tell us.
17th. The 17th is Martin Luther. It's a couple days after Martin Luther King's birthday. It is on the birthday of Muhammad Ali himself. It's also my son's birthday, so there's a lot going on that day. But as you can hear, it's my son's birthday. I'm still willing to take that time to set up a meeting so we can all do something that would be beneficial towards our goal. But I would like to do it because I got other things to do too. You get me?
Absolutely.
And that's all I'm saying. So
I
once
would love to
again,
do something with around housing at your place.
that would not be a problem at all, and we can invite the community in. We have some in our audience who are here from the community. I've already said a minority community that we wanted to work with. Perfect opportunity. And I want to hear everything that anybody has to say. Let's take notes. The more we take notes, then we could come back and we could put everything out there for everybody to kind of divvy out and do whatever we need to do with it. But the opportunity's there, the place is there. It's just, let's go. That's how I see it.
And if you need another commissioner to be there, I'll be there.
I appreciate it. I'm ready to rock.
Okay, so we have the 17th and whatever day MLK is. I still haven't looked.
Would like to, if there's possibility, we not do it in January, but we do it in February.
I'm okay with that too, because Black History Month.
For
and
housing?
I'm all about that as well. That's fine. Even at our shows where our last show was considered Black History Month Showcase. It's because we are looking at prominent black figures, and during our boxing, we stop, we take the time, and we start to explain who these people are, what their difference was amongst our communities, and how they made a difference in our society. That's what we do at our shows. Normally, boxing shows don't do that. We think outside the box. The point is, we're here.
And you're thinking more of truth-telling event?
I'm thinking whatever is needed. I am thinking literally, and I'm going to say that again.
You keep
whatever
smiling,
is
Commissioner Simmons.
I think he's saying the door is open to the possibilities and be there.
Okay.
It's been
Well,
offering.
I am all for using your space as much as we can. Whatever dates that you think make most sense, please send them my way. I will say as soon as possible with your busy schedule. And if you have any ideas, anyone else that has ideas of how they can utilize this event, if we're not quorum, just making sure, Stephanie and Redmond, we don't have to think about any recording or anything at his space. Okay, as long as we don't have quorum.
If you're saying February will work out better, it would just hope that it would be maybe early February. I'm changing my schedule up for our fights over every month. Before it was starting off in February. This year we're starting off in January. In February, it has to be kind of at the beginning or mid because I am leaving. We're going to be out. I got a fight in Vegas, so we're going to be out in Vegas. So, yeah, anytime early February, if you think that would make more sense, all about it.
So just to get back to, I think the original question is, what do we want to end up with? The way I can quantify is how many truth-telling events do we want to have achieved by the end of March? How many fact-finding or fact-sharing sessions do we want to have achieved? How many, whatever our reconciliation events should be? And I know that hopefully by our next meeting, we'll have a very strong update from our Native partners of what that looks like. What do we want to have achieved by that date? It would.
So I'll throw, and I think that we can be doing lots of things in parallel, right? We're not restricted in that sense, but we should have one story finished. That's what I'm going to make the suggestion. There should be one thing where we've gone from topic, fact-finding, truth-telling, reconciliation of some sort, and then what do we think about it as the commission?
So that's
got to be done by the end of March.
Okay.
One thing. We can have all sorts of other things that are supporting it, but we should have one completion, is my suggestion.
One start to finish.
Right.
With some learning in between.
Yeah.
Okay. Everyone agree with that? At least one story told. Now, one story told means at least one of everything on the sheet, but what is our goal for how many, again, fact-finding, how many truth-telling sessions, how many reconciliation, and to piggyback on that, we're still going to try to achieve all of those for all three topics, is the question.
And I'll throw out another one. It seems to me we want to have at least two of each of these.
At least two?
At least two. We know we're going to have for fact-finding, we're going to have three.
Okay.
That's already taken care of. That's going to happen. The other ones, we want to have at least one more to support the idea that this is not a one-trick pony, right? That it can be done some other way. And not obsess with, we need 6, 7, or 8 of them, just one more example that we can point to.
I'm going to invite you to speak.
Yeah, I just wanted to put out there, based on the training that has taken place around truth-telling and just being realistic, that the truth-telling aspect is so sensitive. There has to be interviews, there has to be safe space created, there has to be so much that I'm not sure if a metric of number of is probably even possible. Like, I just don't think that's a good, I just, for the truth-telling part, wanted to kind of flush that out a little bit more as a recommendation based on the training, that those seem very sensitive. And so
do you have a better metric that you would recommend?
I mean, I think that if you're going to be doing one through story or, one thing like that, I mean, just having one event and making it meaningful, right? Like making it safe, doing the things that you want to learn from, right? That are making sure that we're not doing more damage, because I know everybody is very sensitive to that. And I think when we were going through the education piece, when we were going through the training, there were a lot of those considerations that we kind of talked through that day. So I just wanted to throw that out there. But I know that there are other like fact-finding and aspects of it that, yeah, you could probably do that many times in many ways. Surveys, in person, at events. There's very many kind of tried and true practices of that. But I think the truth-telling, we even saw performance. We saw, there were so many examples of that, and then from who and how are we going to support it. So just wanted to add that part just from the training that we received.
You have to give us more detail. I'm lost in why you think that is problematic. So the thought is that if we work with an organization, we would be able to create the environment that does not require there to be, for example, taping. And one of the things I know was a concern around the taping. Now, I do understand that there are other things that need to be put in place, but those things seem to be things that we would know about how to put in place. So I'm struggling with why you think it's problematic for us to do more than one.
I was just going off of the training. I'm not an expert in truth-telling, but from what I understood is in order for people to come forward and do truth-telling, first of all, you have to find those people that are willing to do it. Then you have to do some sort of interview process. And then they have to kind of tell you how they want to tell their truth. So I don't know. It just seemed to me, maybe I'm being unrealistic, but I think that given the sensitivity of the truth-telling aspect that I have heard many times, that I don't know if a metric is a number. Like, I don't know if that is the metric that you want. I think probably what would be more usable for moving forward is what did we learn? What did we do that we would want to do differently in a way that is really handling a sensitive.
The metric doesn't focus on the quality of the information that is shared and how it's to be used. It just really focuses on the number that we feel that would allow us to have enough learnings from the experience that we feel that we could eventually duplicate something of that nature in the future.
I'm not sure if we're really saying anything different, but I don't know. Larry, did you have something?
I'm sorry to interrupt, commissioners. I just want to offer us a couple of suggestions here. I think it's really important to remember that truth-telling in the context of a TRC is often happening a lot less at events and a lot more in, private settings, whether it's someone turning in a written statement or someone giving their statement to a staff person or to a single commissioner. And so I think it's possible for there to be a metric associated with the number of people who submit statements or testimonies. You could do it as an aggregate number. You could also look for a representative sample that represents the demographics of Iowa City, or you could also look for geographic diversity. You want to have so many people from, each council district or each zip code. But just to bolster V's point, I mean, the actual event of having someone, speak publicly and be identified is, I think, important, but less significant than just the chance for people to share their truth with the commission, even if it's done in outside of a public event. So I think it's less important to count the number of events, more important to count the number of people who provide their statements.
Thank you, Dr. Schooley. So I agree with you. And I think when we talk about truth-telling events, at least from me, I'm not necessarily talking about those big, public, scary events that is going to take some trust and some care. like we have been shown from Eduardo. I'm thinking about kind of those preliminary discussions that could look like a listening post or could look like a get-together or just a group of people that feel safe enough to just kind of talk, because I feel like we've been saying, how do we gather those stories so we can have a public event? And those are the ways that I see us gathering them, because if we have one at I-Core Boxing, and it's small, let's say 5-6 people, and people are feeling comfortable sharing, and one of them is brave enough to either write it down, or we can tap them to come do a big event that is probably not going to happen in these first 3 months, maybe in the summer. I feel like that's how we are able to weed out people, not weed out, I'm saying the wrong word, but find people that are comfortable enough to do that and have compelling enough stories to help our cause. Does that fall in line with what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to note that when you look at Greensboro, which is, I think, probably the most helpful point of comparison because it's another U.S. city at a city level. The public hearings there was essentially one hearing for the before of the incident, one hearing dealing with the incident, and one hearing that dealt with the aftermath. And almost all of the speakers were invited, and they were mostly either people with direct experience of the event, or elected officials, or scholars. They were not the kinds of hearings where people just showed up and stood in line the way that Canada, for example, did, with a much broader scope and, an event of much greater magnitude. So I guess I'm just reinforcing what you're saying to say that this is about the collection of testimonies more than it is about the staging of, public hearings, but there should be a lot of different ways for people to provide that, over the course of the process. And I think, seeding that with some lower key ways for people to do it is really advisable.
Great. And
my question on that is, when it comes down to the truth-telling sessions and such, I was thinking a little bit more along the lines of a town hall, but it's a safe place for one, because it's beyond the cameras of the city, and it is just that specific community. So I don't know who they would fear. The fear is the host.
Commissioner, I think what I would just say is there are people who would not feel comfortable speaking in a large group, period, full stop. It doesn't matter necessarily who's in the group. There's just a select group of people who have the confidence and the courage to speak in front of a large audience. And so you want to provide as many pathways as you can for people to convey their statements, just so that you're getting as broad a cross-section of perspectives and not leaving folks out by saying you need to speak in front of a larger group.
No, that's absolutely understandable. That's why I was thinking about the surveys and so on and so forth. Like, we can have someone as the host who is speaking and giving people the opportunity for the voice, but at the same time, if you don't want to step up, we can have something prepared and ready that if you just wanted to make your own voice heard, but doing it completely silently, you can write it out, and we can take that information and move forward with it. That's what I was thinking. So if you didn't want to actually step up and put yourself out there, but you are still amongst your community and you should feel safe, then here's an opportunity for you to write it, and you don't even have to put your name to it. Just give us a good idea, your thought patterns, and then we move from there. That's what my thought pattern was.
And I think that's really good. It's just that psychologically, somebody stepping forward can think, I'm in a safe space, and now I'm going to tell my story, this is great. And then in the middle of that story, or that night, realize it's the worst thing they ever did in their life. And so somehow there has to be something in place to be able to help that person. So we just have to be sure that we've got some structure in place, because that's probably going to happen at some point when we're doing this, because everybody's not that self-aware.
You definitely need to consider the integration of mental health professionals, or at least people volunteering their time that have some sort of expertise in that kind of capacity. That certainly was incorporated in Greensboro, to a certain extent in Maine, and very much so in Canada. That's a really important thing to be thinking about.
I'm all about that. That's why I said the mental health thing. I feel like mental health, that's a part of it. To have somebody there who can the whole thing is about post-traumatic stress. A lot of people dealing with it in multiple different ways. And to have somebody there would be great. That'd be a great opportunity. So if you had the option that if you wanted to talk to somebody about it, you could go off and you could talk a little bit further in a more private setting. But the point is to make sure that they have a spot and a voice and an opportunity. So that's what I was thinking.
Yep.
I would agree. And it is my hope that we get feedback on areas where we would need to have that special service that does not exist, but that should exist. I think Annie and I, when we were focusing on learning the overall system and how these meetings traditionally work together, we had the chance to sit down and have the conversation about healing circles and the conversation about having someone who may have a skill at the concept of healing circles, but that not necessarily being a person who is licensed or trained to deal with issues around trauma. Mm-hmm. So it's my hope that when the plan is given to us, that there are things that we're told that we need to have, in essence, for that plan to be executed, that exist within what services are already provided to us, as well as additional services that we may need that have not been provided to us.
Also, and I could be wrong, but the way I'm thinking about this is we are on a timeline, but we're also not on a timeline. I don't think we need to rush everything. We want to do our testing. I really, at this time, don't see us, we don't have any data to do a big truth telling or even let alone know how to plan it yet. But I do see these opportunities to do these mini ones. And since we don't know what we're doing completely, we should do it with extreme care. And I would love to see us get to that town hall that you're talking about, Commissioner Johnson, especially in your space. I think that would be perfect. But I think that is something to hope for and plan for in, again, a careful way with vetted people, because while we want everyone to share their truth, what's the right way to say it? Not everyone is capable of sharing it in the public way that is going to be helping us with our goal or helping us achieve what we're trying to do for the future. So everyone's story is important, but there's going to be key ones that we are going to want to tap in, because the end goal also is to make a recommendation to City Council with these testimonies as proof as well. So let's say person A tells a story that is true, but it's not as compelling as person B and doesn't share everything. We're going to want to really highlight that person B and prep them to be able to share this in front of everyone. And I think that's what we learned from Eduardo, is how they did that in some places. But we still want to give person A an opportunity to tell their story, and that could be written out. It could be they still get it taped and it's presented in a different way. But I believe there's multiple ways, as we've learned, to share the truths, and that's what we're trying to create. So while we're creating this roadmap, I think I'm going to also try to see what it looks like after the March 30th, or for us without the consultants, and really kind of see what we need to have them for, what the remaining year looks like. So if you have any thoughts on that, please let me know. Let me and Lauren know. Join in if you'd like to. Everyone's always invited under quorum to talk about it. But yeah, that's just my thoughts.
I just want to add from the training, adding to Dr. Skula's voice and V's, that we have to decide where are we going to get the truths from, not letting anyone who wants to come and tell their truth come and tell it. So before we have to decide on that.
And I think that's what I was talking about, using these many opportunities for people to share their truths in small settings. one-on-one with us, 2-on-2, or whatever it looks like, before they go to the big, like, if it's recorded, would be a way for us to screen people, because how would we know
What do we
without
mean
hearing
by
them?
screen too?
And also being careful that the screening doesn't even harm people. You are inviting somebody, and then you decide you're not going forward.
And I think, and again, this is why we're talking about it, right? Commissioner Simmons has the organization, the community sponsor in here. Those people will help us screen. Those people will know the stories. Those people will be able to have the care and the communication and the relationship to bring forth the people that would be able to connect with housing or whatever. And so screening does sound harsh when you're thinking about it. I want to be objective. I don't want to be choosing who gets to speak or doesn't get to speak. But again, we're here for strategic reasons as well to get other things done. So we want everyone to feel good about it. We want them to be taken care of, but not everyone, in my opinion, is meant for a public forum. Everyone is allowed to tell their truths in some form, but not, there's multiple levels to this.
What are the selection processes?
I mean, I think, again, let's say we go to Shelter House and they have some long-term people that they know that can talk to us about housing. People that are coherent enough and able to connect with us and are able to come to a meeting wherever we hold it in a safe space to speak publicly would be invited. People that aren't able but need help, maybe they're sitting down with their person to really communicate that. Maybe it's a video, maybe we invite them in other ways. There's so many different ways we can do it. And I that's why I keep saying I think we're very focused on like the big screen truth telling, which is not necessarily everything, because you can't get everyone into that, if that makes more sense. But again, that's how I'm interpreting it.
And also think on public fora, are we even never going to need that? Why?
I mean, I think we need it because how else are we going to share this? As much as we want people to be safe in their own communities, our communities know what's going on. We need the whole public to know what's going on too, right? In a lot of the truth-telling sessions, they had people telling their truths in front of their oppressors or people that identified with their oppressors or in some form. So, I mean, we can ultimately make that decision. I mean, not us. I think we need the community to make that decision alongside us. But, and I think there's different levels. Some people will not want to confront who they consider their oppressors. Others would be glad to.
Well, I don't think we should confront anybody in that truth-telling
I
session.
think I'm using the wrong word. When I say confront is, I'm saying present, being able to air out their feelings and their experience in front of people that they would never have the power to do so in a different setting.
Maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm just thinking something different because I was just thinking a community of the same people all just kind of airing their grievances and feeling free to do so. And then we take notes from there and then move on it after that. That's what I was under the impression and thinking, that's all.
And that's something we could do. Again, this is just my interpretation, and we're brainstorming right now.
Okay.
What I'm hearing is that we really need to sit and revisit the training we had on truth-telling and plan before moving any further.
So when we get to Section 8, we can talk more about how, if we're going to meet the next one, because I hear what you're saying, we need to get a refresher.
Just let me know what you want done, that's all. You know?
Are we ready to move on to C and D at all? Or do we want to continue this discussion? I think we're having great, brainstorming discussion, so I'm just going to move on.
Yeah.
All right, Commissioner Simmons, would you explain your request for addition $250,000 to City Council?
So I'd like to, based on the time and based on the amount of what I would love to share, I want to alter what my presentation is, to hold some of it back until a later time.
Okay.
But what I would like to do is to be able to at least confirm a couple of things. One is that I think that we were all in agreement that if there's ways that we can participate in the MLK activities, that we would be willing to do that. A part of that included us possibly, I believe you called it tabling, is something. And then the other part is that maybe we can use funds to be able to support a part of the event, which may give us greater access to be able to do some communication. So I want to make, it is my goal to make a motion that we use some of our money in essence to be able to do that. I like to make up to a certain dollar amount. Is
so
it acceptable?
And you want to make a recommendation that has to go to city council?
No, I like to make a recommendation of the funds that we have that I believe initially was of the $10,000.
Oh, of the 10,000.
That we had, that we could possibly use in essence to support the event because of the speed in which we need to do the planning. And so you need to have something in your pocket when you have the ask versus just please help me, please.
And then Redmond, you said that $10,000 was for the first phase. Does that mean that we can have another 10,000 now and we can divvy it?
And you have roughly $4,000 and some change from phase one that you didn't use.
So
roughly around $14,000 should be available to you for phase two.
do you think that's sufficient right off the
So
bat?
I was going to recommend an amount of up to $3,000 to be able to use to support a lunch at the event, at the MLK event. Would that be acceptable?
I mean, I think
Before I make the motion, I'm really asking about the dollar amount.
Yeah.
It could be anything less than that, equal to or less than that, based on what you negotiate. So you can use it or not use it, but at least you knew that you would have it available to you to use.
I mean, does anyone have any objection to this?
To the dollar amount, I can make the motion, and you can always vote it down if you disagree.
I would just suggest it be $5,000 rather than $3,000 to give you more flexibility.
I am just a little concerned because this is for the entire phase two that we have $10,000, and there might be other events that we want to, sponsor or work into in the next three months. So,
Oh, I'm going after more money, but my concept is just for this one event, because of when it is in January. I wanted to make sure that you had the money available for you for that event in January.
okay.
So I move that we spend up to $5,000 for the MLK event, in essence, to our fact-finding communication.
Spend it on what? What exactly are we?
It'd be like for
My
food,
question too.
for the luncheon.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll second that.
And that's up to, so of course we're not going to spend all that. It's just giving us we've
Right.
already gone over this.
Yeah.
So since we're doing discussion before we vote, I think that is a huge amount of money that I will make sure that we don't spend so we can spend on other things. But I appreciate the grace because, I know they already have some dollars and we want to be a sponsor.
It gives you flexibility to
Okay.
use or not use it as you deem we need to.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions or concerns about this before we make this vote on this motion?
There has to be a second, though.
I second.
Oh, he seconded.
Okay.
Oh, so no more discussion?
No discussion right now.
Yeah, it just sounds very impulsive and very unclear,
I'm going to say
especially because we don't even really know whether they are going to even allow us to be there. So, yeah. I would want more information and just more specifics on exactly what we would be spending it on.
My apologies. I didn't mean to cut you off there. I agree.
You're fine.
I agree. I would like to hear where we're going to, I know we don't need to spend it all, but to have a certain amount known that's set to the side, I understand that. I would like to figure out what we're going to do with that money. If it's a booth and all that, what are we doing? So
My thought was is so we have influence over pieces of the planning that allows us to be able to do our communication when it comes to fact finding. The challenge is that when, again, we're talking about the breakfast, clearly it was defined of what we could do. Here, we're talking about more community engagement. You have to then engage with the community until you can really figure that out. So the information that you're seeking is information that can only be gathered after the conversation happens. That's what makes it a challenge. That's why I said up to that dollar amount, just to give grace and flexibility to our fearless leader.
That makes sense. So are we donating it to?
We're not going to give
Or-
anything unless there is a benefit to be able to do that,
Okay.
and our chair would make that determination. So it's not like, here's $5,000,
Yeah, because I don't want to do that.
help us. It's
No.
not that. It's like she has the ability to leverage money if that's something that could influence the ability for us to collaborate.
That makes sense. And I want to clarify, too, it's not that I don't want to give to the day and the cause. It is just that however we spend that money, it would make more sense for us to make sure that we guide it in the right directions. That's all. All about Martin Luther King Day and making sure it's the best it possibly can be, just to clarify.
I understand. Redmond, do I have to get, how much permission do I need from commissioners to spend out of the 14,000? Does it have to be a vote on what it's going towards, or could I, without this, make a decision out of the 10,000 or 14,000?
Well, typically, it would take the whole commission to take a vote, but what I'm hearing in this motion is to give you the authority to have that ability up to $5,000.
Okay, but we do need to do that, is what you're saying? Again.
That would
Okay.
happen.
All right.
And one of the areas I'm seeing spending is because so far, unless I misheard, we would do tabling. And tabling needs some swag or something on the table. I can see that spending, but we also need to kind of work it out, what exactly is going to be there. I'm really uncomfortable with the impulsivity of it, and like I said again, we don't even know what exactly are we going to have on that table and what is it going to cost.
My suggestion is don't we have merch, like our shirts and pens and stuff like that? That would be a great idea. That's a great start. For one, putting the Truth and Reconciliation Commission out there amongst a day like such, it would be, I think that would be really helpful. That's one place to start.
Yeah. And I believe, Stephanie, you already ordered a bunch of merch and stuff for us, or like the pens and.
Yeah, you have pins and like paper, but if you were thinking of something else, then you would need to let me know, because it's going to be a quick turnaround.
There's some local businesses around here that turn shirts over all the time. I get them made. So they definitely could do it, and we could get the shirts out there within a couple weeks if we were to make the moves now. And by the time that rolls around, we'd be ready. And then we have a table, and we have merchandise, and we have a reason for people to come over. Everybody likes free stuff, too. So that gives people a reason to come over and talk to us a little bit more. Plus, it looks cool.
I just think it's a great idea, and I trust our chair to make the right decision. So I'd like to call the question and just have a vote.
Are you all ready to vote, or do you have more discussion?
I would be more comfortable if at all we decide to have a meeting on 21st, and I'm thinking our chair, if you're liaising with the planners, then I would, and this just for myself, I would be able to vote on 21st on any spending with more information working with the planners, since we are getting into this pretty late.
I hear what you're saying. Regardless of what we do, I think it is important that we get some of these swag items, because we're going to use them for the next 4 months. So I would like to request that we get a table cover and some shirts. And I think that that would be a great investment that we could use throughout 2024 and use some of those dollars to go towards, and we could start handing them out on the 21st because we do have pens and we have paper with a table cover and, some shirts to hand out. I think that's a good thing to, put out there if everyone agrees or.
People love that. It'll go like hot fire, and it's a good way of getting our name out there and to as many people as possible.
And a good way to talk to people on the day of.
And if somehow we get contact information with the TRC on something.
I would love to work with our city staff and our consultants on some pamphlet information or something we can pass out to people or something, or QR code or something to lead to the website, just to get people learning more about what we're doing and translate it in different languages for 2024. Would that make you more comfortable if we were to vote on something like that right now?
Yeah, because it's not necessarily just for this event, all that.
Okay. So I'm calling it swag items. What about, I agree, I appreciate the up to 5,000, but I think what would be more reasonable, it might be more agreeable right now, is to say up to $1,000.
Thank you for the option. I do not change my motion. It is as it is.
Yeah, I think we should vote on the motion, and
Okay. Voting on the motion, can you repeat the motion just one more time, please?
The motion is that we can spend, that we ask our chair to negotiate and spend up to $5,000 for the MLK event on the 15th of January, 2024.
And Lou has seconded.
I second it.
Okay, and is there any more discussion? Okay, thank you, Stephanie, if you could.
Commissioner Simmons?
Yes.
Commissioner, like I just blanking out.
It's all right.
Yes.
It's all right.
Sorry, yes. Hassanary, thank you. Oh, my goodness. Commissioner Dillard?
Yes.
Commissioner Gathawa? And Commissioner...
Abstaining on the figure being too high.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Okay. Motion passes 4 with 1 abstention.
Thank you. Is it okay to go on to D, or do we need to push that to a later date?
So we spend a lot of time talking about the system and what we need to do with the system. We didn't really spend time about the community engagement, and then how do we collaborate and we work with different groups to be able to get our message across. I still believe that there is work that in essence needs to be done there. The challenge is that depending on the work that you're putting together for the system that we specifically have to do, then will limit the ability for us to do the community engagement work, which I think is even more important than the system work. Mm-hmm. Because without the people, then, the tree that falls in the middle of the forest does not make a sound. Mm-hmm. And we need to make some sounds. So I would like for us to spend some time talking about additional investment that we need to make to get the community on our side. I do not believe that within the time that we have now that we can do do justice to that conversation. And we're not talking about little money. We're talking about more than little money. So I would like to be able to schedule some time to specifically talk about that. And I'm fine if we want to do that at the first meeting in January.
Okay. Anyone else have anything to add to that? Otherwise, I'm going to move on. All right. Thank you all. That was a great brainstorming discussion for agenda item number 7. I'm opening it up to public comment. If there's anyone online, please raise your hand, or anyone in the room with us that would like to speak. If you would like to come up to the microphone, go ahead, Amos. And thank you for waiting patiently.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chair. I just want to stress on a point made by Commissioner Johnson on the items that should be budgeted for there. Very, very important. And it also touches on outreach and community engagement. On this particular day, we can use the QR code is used. We should be able to use technology. We could have questionnaires, and that will give us a framework, a population of people willing to do different things. Somebody's going to write a questionnaire, I don't know, in different languages. They're asking people, what are you willing to do? Do you have some issues in this area? Which areas do you have issues in? And we should, with the QR code, you can put that in a machine algorithm, and within 20 seconds, it will speak to you the data exactly in table format like that. Mm-hmm. So we could use that money to do that. That is going to cost very little, but somebody has to sit down and develop that questionnaire. I don't know whether in work sessions. For some reason, you guys, I don't know when you have your work sessions. I think the city wants us.
We don't have work sessions.
The city wants you to allow us, the public, to be involved in the work sessions, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, but that's the issue I wanted. Let's really connect with the people in different formats here. Yeah, the different organizations, the churches, mosques, synagogues, and all this in different ways to seek those people Commissioner Chad is talking about. Let's invest early on them and see what they're thinking about. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room or online that would like to address this question or this agenda item? Okay, moving on to agenda item number 8, discussion on whether to hold a meeting on December 21st. I'm just going to say I am willing to meet on the 21st. I think we have a lot of work to do, but I will respect the holidays and go with what everyone else is feeling. Yeah, that's my opinion. So everyone else discuss.
So long as there is quorum, I am able to and willing to attend the meeting on December 21.
I am as well. If we get a quorum, we can do it.
Any other thoughts?
This meeting is just basically...
It's our normal meeting, but I'm putting it up there because it is close to a holiday and trying to respect that people have been telling us that, it's been a lot going on, holidays. So there's no judgment, just want to know what people want to do.
What mission do we plan on accomplishing at this meeting?
I mean, I would continue the conversation that we've been having tonight and really dive into what Commissioner Sivens wanted to talk more about. And hopefully in 2 weeks, I can have had some conversation with our consultants and report back on a draft of a roadmap, especially since it's right before the holidays. I'd rather do it before than after. So, and then whatever other conversations, we could talk more about that community engagement piece. I see us, we can find things to really discuss if need be. It's entirely up to us if it's possible.
Do we feel like we need it? I'm asking everybody.
I mean, I personally think we need like several more meetings, but we are busy people. So
I think it would be good for us to meet before the Christmas break. I just think there's enough stuff that's been thrown back to the consultants. We want the consultants to do. We want to have some interaction with them. It would be nice to have that touch point before we jump off for the holidays, if we can do it.
Another option, if we don't make quorum, I mean, we can do our own little subcommittee if people aren't available, but remember, that's only 4 people. So that if anyone wanted to meet via Zoom, we could do that just to like touch base on certain things before the holidays. If people are feeling like this meeting is going to be too much that close to the holidays. So
would that be easier for us to just do, can we just do a Zoom meeting?
Only with 4 people.
4 people, or,
So it's, I'm waiting for you to say what you want to say. It's totally okay if you don't want.
You all are, first thing, you all are wonderful people. If I get to say that. And I think that the commitment that everyone has put in has been truly amazing. I don't think that people understand the work that's being asked of the commission. This is to me where I focus, right, and this is my human resources come out. This is where I focus on the team's mental well-being. If anyone has deserved to have some time just to be, this commission has that time, has earned that right to just be. Listen, I'm fine to tell Santa what I'm looking for from a commissioner's perspective on the 21st. I'd be more than willing to do that. I don't have a problem with doing that. My recommendation and suggestion is take the time, enjoy the family, think of wonderful things, drink some hot or cold eggnog, and let's really be ready to come back on January 4th. I think there is a lot that has to be done, and I think we have to be very clear about what success looks like. That would be my suggestion. But I will say this. If you want to meet on the 21st, I will be there.
I have got to say, I sit back and I listen more because I like to see exactly what the energy is. And I personally agree with you. 21st is actually another birthday I got to deal with. So I am willing to say no, but like I've tried my best to be, I'm very flexible. So if you guys really want to meet, we can do it. But yes, there is a lot of family stuff, and I take family a lot more. I take it very seriously.
And I'm going to step up and say, no, I will not be available. We need this time off. We earned the right to be able to, we need the time. I want to support us having the time.
Yeah, cheers. I agree. I'm going with that too.
Okay, it looks like no, people do not want to meet. I'm not going to say that I want to meet. I feel like we need to meet, but we don't have to. That's totally fine. Let's take the time off. It seems like that's what the commission would like to do. I will need help and support over the next few weeks before then to get some of the stuff together, especially since I plan to be gone Christmas and the week of New Year's. So.
What do you need from me?
What I need from everyone right now is to think about dates and times and spaces, events that we can piggyback on, and send me or Stephanie or the consultants those dates, and send all of them. We're not going to do all of them. Let's just see what's out there, because collectively we probably have a better schedule of what's going on than separately. Think about, and if you can, write it out, what you're able to commit to do, because what we're talking about is once again more than twice a month, which we talked about this in July, and we did that, and it was too much. Which I understand, it was too much. So let's think about realistically, for our own mental well-being, what is doable and how we can spread it out so people don't feel like they have to do everything all month. And what you're passionate about, what in all the aspects of what we're doing, and what you really want to dive into. That would be most helpful. Another, like right now, answer emails and text messages if you can before the holidays, just so can get all that information out. Whenever it's possible. And I say this as a person who's very bad at answering those two. So I think that would help us collaborate on a team side, and, take time to yourself. As we're saying, take care of yourself, because the next 3-4 months, actually the next year, is going to be a wild ride. Let's be honest. So thank you for asking that.
I want to say again, text message is the best way to get in contact with me.
Mm-hmm. And I will make sure to always text you.
So I was going to suggest, if there are any documents that start to form that we want to work on.
So we can't, when it comes to documents, we can't share them with each other. That's considered quorum.
But if there can't be a common site that we can go to?
You can share documents, I think, between one another. I think it's if you
can't.
have like a Google document and everybody can add to it at the time would be so I don't know what you mean by.
I was thinking adding asynchronously, not all working on it at the same time.
But we'd still be working on the same document, like a Google Doc.
I'll run it by the city attorney and get an
Yeah.
answer to see if.
I think it's the case that if you're working on it asynchronously, then it doesn't constitute a quorum.
Thank you, Stephanie, for looking into that.
Lou, what do you have in mind, Commissioner?
Tassinari.
The document
Well, it's
on.
dates, if something starts to emerge where it's like, this is going to happen this time, someone can make a comment and just say, that's not going to work. So it's again, it's not everybody coming together at the same time.
Like some doodle poll?
No, it could be just comments on the document, like a Microsoft Teams document or a Word document that's
Like
up
the
on.
roadmap or something.
Yeah, there could be a roadmap that pops up, whatever. I mean, just, it would allow us to do a bit more offline and make some progress, that's all. If we're allowed to.
Okay, well, is there any other discussion on this? It seems like we're not having a meeting on the 21st. We're going to take break and then resume on the first Thursday of January in the new year. Okay, so let's move on to public comments. Any other public comments for this agenda item? Let's move on to announcements of commissioners. Anyone have announcements? Okay, I'm going to do my plug for my organization again. It's giving season, so if you would like to give to an organization, consider the Neighborhood Centers of Johnson County, because we do serve immigrant and refugee families throughout the area and are working towards, again, our after-school program and making sure that parents and their children have a safe place to go. So I appreciate everyone that helped us out for Giving Tuesday, and again, plugging the Neighborhood Centers, because I'm hoping that we can also work collaboratively with this project.
Everyone enjoy the break, and I will see you in 2024.
Oh, last thing, personal note, you all know I do theater stuff, so if you want to do something fun, come to our holiday cabaret next Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at the James. It's going to be a holiday show. It'll be fun, a little snarky, so if you're looking for some fun things to do.
Yeah, last plug for me is we got the Jingle Bell Brawl 2. That'll be on the 16th of December. That is our second Christmas show. It is a show that is about a lot of developmental fights. That's a lot of people who are just stepping in, family-friendly environment, very low-key, very relaxed pace, but fun. We had a great time last year. Always welcome to everybody, no matter what. It's only the other thing I got.
Anyone else? Okay. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you in 2024, and thanks for everyone reminding us to, keep our health in mind. I'm going to turn it over to city staff if you have any announcements.
I just wanted to reference my earlier comments on communication, that I was talking about process and deliverables and those kind of things. I was not talking about invoicing or financial matters. Those would still be appropriate for those to be coordinated by the city. So I just wanted to clear that up.
Thank you.
And I was just going to add, Commissioner Johnson, if you have worked with local vendors, if you could, pick out the style you want and then send me the link, and then I'll take care of, the invoice, the payment or whatever. But if you can send me who you usually work with, the style of the shirt that you want, then I can go from there and get those ordered. Quantities, sizes, all that would be greatly appreciated.
When do you need that by?
I mean,
As soon as possible?
I don't know as soon as possible. I mean, whatever one you think is the best and whatever one you think can get it by the time that you guys will need it.
No problem. I'll hop on it.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then the only other thing I was going to mention is I will not be at the January 4th meeting. So I know last time the replacement, I don't know. I don't have Sophia anymore to come, so I'm not sure what that will look like. But I will not be here at that meeting. So I will send any updates with Redmond.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The last announcement, just jumping back real quick, just for everyone, if you do have any agenda items, could you please get it to us by the Sunday night before that Thursday meeting so that Stephanie can review with me and Lauren and then get it submitted that day. So with that, I would like to motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
Thank you.
Cheers.